In my past life, my grandmother left me a jade pendant and a gold bracelet on her deathbed. My sister, thinking the jade pendant was bad luck, snatched the gold bracelet and left without a care. I kept the jade pendant, which unexpectedly unlocked a spiritual spring dimension, allowing me to turn my life around and become wealthy. But after she squandered all her money, she actually pushed me off a skyscraper. Back to the day of the choice, my sister snatched the jade pendant. This time, I want it. I lowered my head to hide my smile. She didn't know that the real spiritual spring wasn't in the jade pendant at all. This jade pendant is our family heirloom. Pandora, Evelina, which one of you wants it? Grandma looked at us both with weak but loving eyes as she lay on her deathbed. My sister and I are both her beloved granddaughters. I want this jade pendant. Pandora's voice woke me up. I stirred slightly and only then realized I was kneeling by my grandmother's bedside. There was no weightless sensation of falling from a height before death, no overwhelming tide of regret and resentment, and no final, crushing pain upon impact. I, Evelina, have been reborn. My gaze fell upon the pale gray jade pendant in Pandora's hand. In my past life, my elder sister had scorned this pendant as ugly and filthy. She adamantly refused to take anything she called dead people's stuff, but in the end, she left after taking off the gold bracelet from her grandmother's wrist. Now, in the morning hall, the flickering candlelight reflected the flush on her cheeks, a sign of her excitement. I lowered my head to hide the shock in my eyes, my heart pounding like a drum. She was reborn too. Evelina, you wouldn't compete with your sister, would you? Pandora tightly clutched the jade pendant in her palm, smiling at me with fake sincerity. Sister has always loved jade, so this one is just a keepsake. You take the gold bracelet. It's worth more. I slowly raised my head, my gaze sweeping over her tense finger joints due to her nervousness. In her past life, she didn't say that. I wouldn't even take this worthless jade pendant for free. If sister likes it, take it, I said softly, reaching out to remove the tarnished gold bracelet from Grandma's wrist. The moment I touched Grandma's skin, the icy coldness made my nose sting. In my previous life, it was after Grandma's funeral that I discovered the spiritual spring space hidden within the jade pendant. My sister sold the gold bracelet for money, squandered it all, and ended up destitute, eventually even harboring murderous intent toward me. With a loud bang, my sister suddenly knelt before our grandmother's spirit tablet, her exaggerated sobs echoing, "Grandma, rest in peace, Evelina, and I will be fine." As she cried, she furtively glanced at the jade pendant in her hand, her fingers constantly rubbing its surface. As if anticipating something, I watched her performance coldly. Her urgency clearly indicated that she had discovered the secret of the jade pendant. Why is Pandora being so understanding today? Mother wiped away her tears. Usually, she's the most afraid of these things. Mom, Pandora quickly interrupted. I just suddenly realized, Grandma loved us the most before she passed away. I silently tidied up Grandma's shroud, my fingers pausing at her lapel, where her favorite gardenia should have been pinned. In my previous life, I placed it there, but in this life, I haven't done it yet. I put Grandma's favorite gardenia here. Pandora pointed eagerly at the slightly wilted white flower pinned to Grandma's chest, her face full of ingratiation. I remember Grandma saying its fragrance could guide the way. A chill ran down my spine. Grandma told me that in private, my sister wasn't even there. Not only has she been reborn, she's trying to relive my past life's experiences. After the funeral, Pandora was uncharacteristically bustling about, while helping to sort through Grandma's belongings. Her eyes kept darting toward the jade pendant, seizing moments when no one was looking. She would secretly prick her finger to drip blood onto the pendant or examine it under the moonlight, her growing agitation becoming harder and harder to conceal. Evelina, have you chosen a burial plot for Grandma? Father asked, puffing on his pipe. I'd like to bury her on that flat land behind the hill. Following the old rites, I said softly. Grandma always loved the open view from there. Why bother with all that? Pandora interjected. A cemetery is so convenient. We can bury her tomorrow. She was eager to wrap up the funeral quickly so she could focus on studying the jade pendant. No way, I said firmly. Grandma wanted to be buried in the ground. I've already asked Uncle Lee to dig the grave tomorrow. Pandora was about to say something else, but my mother nodded. Let's go with Evelina's decision. The old lady did mention it. The next day at noon, the sun blazed overhead. Uncle Lee led two young men to dig a grave at the chosen spot, when suddenly the sound of a hoe hitting something hard rang out. "Ha, there's a blue stone slab down here," Uncle Lee exclaimed in surprise. Just as I was about to step forward to take a look, a sudden heat surged from my wrist. It was the little bear hair tie my grandmother gave me last year, which I've been wearing as a keepsake. Looking down, I saw that the ordinary hair tie, with its rough little bear carving, was now faintly glowing with a pale blue light. A warm current surged through my wrist and straight into my heart. My vision went dark, and an ancient voice, audible only to me, echoed in my ears. The spiritual spring acknowledges its master, bringing long-lasting blessings. With a kind heart, one can achieve their ultimate destiny. When I opened my eyes again, the world had changed. I could sense that within the hair tie on my wrist lay a wondrous realm. A clear spring, dark soil, and a floating ancient book. Evelina, what are you spacing out for? Pandora's voice pulled me back to reality. She eyed me suspiciously. You're looking so pale. Heatstroke. I forced a smile, maybe a little, out of the corner of my... I noticed the jade pendant in her hand was still dull and lifeless, so that's it. The spiritual spring isn't in the jade pendant at all. It's the dragon vein stone buried 3 feet underground in my past life. I bound the jade pendant because it was the only token I had on me at the time. I touched the bear-shaped hair tie on my wrist, my heart racing. Sister has taken the wrong treasure, while the true opportunity is glowing and heating up on my wrist too. In the dead of night, I curled up on the wooden plank bed my grandmother used to sleep in. The little bear hair tie on my wrist felt faintly warm after confirming the doors and windows were locked. I followed the method that surfaced in my mind and focused my consciousness into the hair tie after a dizzying, disorienting sensation. I found myself standing in a strange space. It's at least 3 times larger than the spirit spring space from my past life. Underfoot lay a half-acre plot of black soil, its surface gleaming with a rich, oily sheen at its very center. A clear spring bubbled and gurgled, surrounded by a few medicinal herbs I couldn't identify, and most miraculous of all, a yellowed ancient book hovered in the air. The 4 seal script characters Force Spirit Spring Secret Tome on its cover emitting a faint glow. As I reached out and touched the ancient book, it automatically flipped to the first page, which read, The 3 treasures of the Spirit Spring. First, the water heals wounds. Second, the soil nurtures rarities. Third, the tome dispels doubts. The moment my fingertip brushed past those words, the pages turned again to a new section, revealing several herbal diagrams and detailed cultivation methods. My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, there was only the Spirit Spring. No, I also had this fertile black soil capable of cultivating rare medicinal herbs and this treasury of knowledge. Suddenly, ripples formed on the spring's surface, and several lines of text emerged from the water. To the new master upon arrival, 3 spirit seeds are bestowed. They shall mature in 30 days. 3 seeds glowing faintly rose from the bottom of the spring and landed in my palm. I carefully planted them in the black soil and watered them with the spiritual spring. The seeds sprouted at an astonishing speed, and I almost gasped out loud. Evelina, what are you mumbling about at this ungodly hour? My sister's voice came from next door, accompanied by impatient wall knocking. I quickly withdrew from the shared space, my heart pounding like a drum. It's nothing, I said, just talking in my sleep. Weirdo, Pandora muttered. I heard the sound of her turning over, followed by the soft clink of her jade pendant tapping against the bed frame. Moonlight streamed in through the crack in the window. I stared at the little bear hair tie on my wrist, and a smile crept unbidden to the corners of my mouth. The jade pendant my sister snatched from me will probably never react. The real treasure, it turns out, is this utterly unremarkable little bear hair tie on my wrist. Early the next morning, I was startled awake by the sharp arguing in the courtyard. Impossible. This can't be. Pandora's voice was hysterical. It was supposed to be. I tiptoed to the window and peered through the crack to see her examining the jade pendant in the sunlight, her face a mix of anger and confusion. She suddenly grabbed the fruit knife on the table, slashed her finger, and dripped the blood onto the jade pendant. The blood droplets slid down the surface of the jade pendant without any change. Damn it. She slammed the jade pendant onto the ground, then hurriedly picked it up to check for cracks. Pandora, what are you doing? Her mother came out, startled by the bloodstains on the floor. Pandora suppressed her anger. It's okay, Mom, I just miss Grandma. She clenched the jade pendant tightly, her gaze dark as she glanced at my window, and I quickly retreated into the shadows. At breakfast, my father tapped the table. Evelina, the Liu family came to propose marriage yesterday, and your mother and I think it's a good match. My chopsticks paused. The Liu family's simple-minded son. In our past life, my older sister took the bride price and then ran away from the marriage, leaving our family to pay back double. In this life, is it my turn, Dad? I'm still too young. My foot. Mother cut me off. The Liu family is willing to pay $80,000 in bride price. That's enough to buy your brother a small apartment in the county town. Pandora chimed in. The Liu family has such great conditions, and even though their son is a bit, well, that's not an issue. Evelina would be living a life of luxury if she married into that family. I lowered my head to eat, hiding the coldness in my eyes. In my previous life, after she ran away from the wedding, I worked day and night making handicrafts to pay off her debts. In this life, she's so eager to push me into the fire pit. I'll think about it, I said softly. What's there to think about? Father slammed the table. It's settled. After dinner, I used the excuse of visiting my grandmother's grave to slip out of the house. At the grave on the back hill, I knelt on the fresh soil and whispered, Grandma, I will use the treasure you gave me well. The hair tie on my wrist grew faintly warm, as if in response. On my way down the mountain, I heard a panicked cry for help. Following the sound, I saw the wife of the Wang family, the wealthiest household in the east of the village, sprinting with a child in her arms. The child's face was a ghastly blue-purple, limbs convulsing. My Leo's been bitten by a venomous snake. Help, please, someone help, the woman wailed, as villagers gathered around, frantic but powerless to act. A page from the sacred spring tome flashed through my mind, the chapter on detoxification. I rushed forward in a hurry, exclaiming, "Let me take a look." The child was about 5 or 6 years old, with 2 tiny bite marks on his calf, the surrounding skin already blackened. Pretending to examine the wound, I secretly drew a drop of sacred spring water from my spatial storage and let it fall onto the injury. "Herbs are needed." I looked up at Madame Wang and said, "I know there's a herb in the back mountain that can detoxify. It's too late. The town hospital is an hour away." Madame Wang cried so hard she almost fainted. "Trust me," I said firmly, while secretly using the spiritual spring to massage the child's wound. The black blood slowly seeped out, and the child's breathing stabilized a bit amidst the astonished gazes of the crowd. I continued, "First, lay him flat. I'll go gather some herbs." After saying that, I ran to a secluded spot, quickly entered the space, and picked a handful of freshly grown detoxifying herbs. Returning to the child, I chewed the herbs and applied them to the wound, then secretly mixed in a few drops of spiritual spring water and fed it to him. In less than 10 minutes, the child's complexion turned rosy, and his eyes opened. Amazing, the surrounding villagers exclaimed. Madame Wine hugged me tightly. "Evelina, you are a great benefactor to our family." She pulled out a stack of money from her bag and pressed it into my hands. "Please accept this small token of our gratitude." I couldn't refuse and had to accept it. Counting it, it amounted to a full 5,000 yuan. The first person I saved in my past life was a wealthy merchant from the city, but this time it was a child from the same village, and the feeling was completely different. "When did Evelina learn medicine?" a villager curiously asked. "My grandmother taught me some folk remedies before she passed away," I replied with a smile, catching a glimpse of Pandora standing at the edge of the crowd, her expression uncertain. When I got home, I hid the money and only left 500 on the table. "Dad, Mom, this is the reward from the Wang family." Father's eyes lit up, and he immediately grabbed the money to count it. Pandora leaned in. "Evelina, when did you learn to heal? Grandma never taught us that. You're always running around outside, so of course you don't know," I replied calmly, deliberately showing off the bear-shaped hair tie on my wrist. "Grandma only taught me, and even this hair tie was specially left for me." Pandora's pupils constricted, and she reached out to grab my hair tie. "Let me see." I deftly sidestepped. "Sister, don't you already have the jade pendant? This worthless trinket might as well be mine." Her face alternated between green and white, then suddenly she put on a smile. "Evelina, about the Liu family matter, I'll try to persuade Mom and Dad for you again." "No need." I looked her straight in the eye. "My affairs, I'll handle them myself." Just then, the sound of a car engine came from outside the courtyard gate. A tall figure in military uniform stepped down from the jeep, glancing toward our yard. "Excuse me, is this the Tobin residence?" The officer's voice was clear and strong. Our whole family was stunned. Father was the first to react, hurrying forward. "Good day, sir. I'm Tobin. Is there something I can help you with?" "I am Ethan from the Military District Research Office." The officer showed his credentials. "I've come to the village to conduct a folk customs survey. The village recommended that your elderly family member is very knowledgeable about local traditions." His words came to an abrupt halt, his gaze falling on me, a barely perceptible shock flashing in his eyes, and my heart almost stopped. "Ethan, the officer from my past life who I fell in love with but never had the chance to marry. How did he get here ahead of time?" What sent chills down my spine even more was that Pandora had already sashayed forward, extending her hand and cooing. "Good day, Commander Ethan. I'm Pandora, and this is my sister Evelina. Our grandmother just passed away, but we are well versed in local customs and can help out." She deliberately jingled the jade pendant in her hand, and sure enough, Ethan's gaze was drawn to it. I held my breath. Could it be that he had been reborn too, or was it? Ethan quickly regained his composure and politely shook hands with each of us. As his fingertips brushed against my palm, I distinctly felt him give my finger a slight, secretive tug, just like the signal we used on dates in a past life. Pandora didn't notice this subtle gesture. She was busy showing off the unresponsive jade pendant. "Commander Ethan, this is an antique jade passed down from my grandmother. They say it's over 200 years old." I took a step back, watching Ethan's perfect poker face and Pandora's earnest performance, and suddenly, something clicked. In this Rebirth game, there might be more players than just us two sisters. For at dawn, I crouched beside the black soil of the space, carefully picking the ripe detox herbs. In just 3 days, those few seeds have grown into a lush medicinal patch, with dew from the spiritual spring rolling on the leaves. According to the ancient texts, these should fetch a good price. I neatly arranged the herbs in the prepared bamboo basket, then covered them with common weeds as a disguise. As I exited the space, the little bear hair tie on my wrist felt slightly warm, as if reminding me to be careful. Ever since discovering the space, I've felt that this hair tie has some kind of spirituality, more alive than the jade pendant from my previous life. The courtyard was quiet, and my family was still asleep. I sneaked out of the house quietly and headed towards the town market. The morning market was already bustling with activity. I found an inconspicuous corner, spread out a coarse cloth, placed a few detoxifying herbs on it, and wrote specializing in snake bites and insect stings on a broken wooden board with charcoal. Little girl, are these herbs genuine? An old hunter with wrinkled face crouched down, suspiciously fiddling with my herbs. Try taking a bite of the leaf. I confidently handed over one. It's bitter at first but sweet afterwards. That's how real detox herbs are. The old hunter chewed the leaf and his eyes lit up. This is truly a mountain treasure. How much is it? 50 yuan per plant. That's so expensive. He widened his eyes. I lowered my voice. This is a 30-year-old variety, almost extinct in the mountains now. I used this to save Leo from the Wang family the day before yesterday. The old hunter hesitated for a moment, but eventually pulled out 2 crumpled bills. Give me 4. My brother was bitten by a 5-step snake last week and is still in the hospital. Not long after opening, most of my herbs were sold. Just as I was counting my earnings, a shadow fell over my stall. I'll take all of these herbs. A clear male voice made my heart skip a beat. I looked up to meet Ethan's sharp eyes, like an eagle's. He was dressed casually today, but still couldn't hide his military bearing. Does Commander Ethan know about herbs? I tried to stay calm, but my fingers unconsciously twisted the hem of my shirt. In our previous life, our first encounter was at the county hospital. He was hospitalized due to a training injury. While I was there to sell mountain goods back then, he didn't appear in my life so early. Ethan crouched down, his fingertips gently brushing over the herb leaves. This is purple-backed honeysuckle, with a net-like distribution of veins, a characteristic of the wild old variety. He looked up, meeting my eyes. This variety was nearly extinct 20 years ago. Where did Miss Evelina find it? A cold sweat broke out on my back. How could he know so much? In his previous life, he clearly knew nothing about herbs. There's a hidden valley behind the mountain. My grandmother used to take me there. I casually fabricated, while carefully observing his expression. A subtle emotion flickered in Ethan's eyes, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Is that so? Perhaps one day Miss Evelina could guide me. I'm quite interested in rare plants. Of course, I agreed insincerely, quickly packing up my stall. But I have to head home today. Something's come up. He pressed his hand down on my bamboo basket. Didn't you say you'd sell it all to me? He said, pulling 100 yuan bills from his wallet. 1,000. Is that enough? My eyes went wide. These herbs were worth 300 at most on the market. What was he? That's too much. I pulled back 2 and handed them to him. 800 is enough. Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist, his hand landing right on the bare hair tie. We both jolted at the same time. A flicker of shock flashed in his eyes. Then he regained his composure. Your hair tie. It's quite special. I yanked my hand back abruptly, my heart pounding like a drum. He felt it. He must have felt the power of the spiritual spring. It was left to me by my grandmother. I quickly wrapped up the remaining herbs and handed them to him. Deal's done, I'm off. I had barely taken a few steps when a familiar voice called out from behind. Commander Ethan, what a coincidence. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Pandora. She had deliberately worn a tight-fitting red top today, her hair meticulously styled. Clearly, she had put in considerable effort to look her best. Miss Evelina. Ethan's voice was polite yet distant. I quickened my pace to leave, but I could still hear Pandora's affected laughter. Officer Ethan likes herbs. My foolish little sister dares to sell random weeds she picked. Rounding the street corner, I let out a long sigh of relief. Ethan's unusual behavior made me uneasy. The way he looked at me was too familiar, as if he had known me for a long time. When I got home, I hid the money I earned in a secret compartment under the bed. This money would be enough for emergencies. But it was far from enough to escape the Liu family's pressure to marry. 5. During lunch, my father announced while tapping the edge of his bowl, the Liu family will bring the betrothal gifts tomorrow. The 8th day of next month is a good day, so let's get the wedding done. My chopsticks trembled, and a piece of tofu fell onto the table. Dad, shut up. My father glared. The betrothal gifts have been accepted, and there's no room for you to argue. Pandora chuckled softly to herself, feigning sincerity as she said, Evelina, a woman must marry eventually. The Liu family is quite well off. Don't be ungrateful. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deeply into my palms. Suddenly, a thought crossed my mind that the Wangs, I had saved their child. Perhaps, Dad, Mom, I'm going to the Wangs, I said, setting down my chopsticks and standing up. Madame Wang mentioned yesterday that she wanted to thank me and was going to send some things. When Father heard the words, deliver something, his expression softened slightly. Go ahead, but don't take too long. The Wang family lives in the most impressive 2-story house in the village. I knocked on the door and explained my purpose, and Madame Wang warmly welcomed me inside. Oh, Evelina, Leo is completely healed. You are truly a savior to our family. She pulled me to sit down and instructed the servant to bring fruit. Madame Wang, I have a rather presumptuous request. I began hesitantly. My family has accepted the betrothal gifts from the Liu family. The one with the simpleton son. They're forcing me to marry him next month, Madam Wang's face fell. What? That Lu family's dim-witted son who's known to beat people. Have your parents lost their minds? I lowered my head, pretending to wipe away tears. I wanted to go work in the county town to earn the money to return the betrothal gifts, but my parents won't allow it. What a sin, Madame Wang exclaimed, slapping the table as she stood up. All right, here's what we'll do. I'll speak to your father. You can come work as our family physician, with a monthly salary of 3,000. As for the Lu family, I'll have your Uncle Wang go and talk to them. I was secretly delighted, but on the surface, I looked even more pitiful. But my dad has already taken the money. How much? 80,000, right? Madame Wang waved her hand generously. We'll cover that amount for now. With your exceptional medical skills, you can't let them go to waste at the Lu family, as I left the Wang's house. I had 5,000 yuan in my pocket from Madame Wang as an advance payment. And my steps felt much lighter, with the Wangs backing me. At least I could buy some time. As night fell, I lay in bed, tossing and turning. Ethan's unusual behavior, Pandora's deliberate approach, and that overly coincidental folk research, all of it left me uneasy. Entering the spirit spring space, I cupped some water and drank it, the cool liquid sliding down my throat, bringing clarity. Suddenly, ripples spread across the surface, and hazy images began to emerge. Pandora sneaked into my room. Rummaging through my things, the scene shifted, and she was conspiring with a hunched figure in the woods. The figure turned around, revealing the notorious old bachelor Viper from the village. I gasped, and the scene suddenly switched to first-person perspective. I was trapped in a dark alley, with Viper grinning menacingly as he approached, muttering, "Let's make it a done deal." The water's surface grew still once more, trembling all over. I withdrew from that space. Was this a glimpse of the future? My own sister would stoop to such despicable means to harm me. Moonlight streamed through the window like water. As I fingered the little bare hair tie on my wrist, my resolve solidified. Since my sister has made the first move, I no longer need to hold back. The next morning, I casually mentioned to my mother, "Mom, I dreamed of Grandma yesterday. She said the hair tie on my wrist is a family heirloom and that I should take good care of it." Nonsense, my mother frowned. Isn't that just a 2-yuan trinket from a street stall? Pandora was combing her hair when she heard this. Her hand jerked, and the comb fell to the ground. She stared intently at my hair tie, her eyes gleaming with greed and suspicion. "Hey sis, how's your jade pendant doing?" I asked pointedly. "Grandma came to me in a dream and said the family heirloom needs sincere devotion to awaken its power." Pandora's face went pale, and the jade pendant in her hand clattered onto the table. She frantically picked it up to inspect it, only to discover a fine, hairline crack had appeared on its surface. She pointed at me, her finger trembling. "What do you know?" I blinked innocently. "I was just recounting Grandma's dream." "Why is sister getting so worked up?" Our parents watched our sisterly spat with puzzled looks, unsure of what was happening. Seizing the moment, I stood up. "Mrs. Wang asked me to visit her mother-in-law today to treat her rheumatism. Don't wait for me for lunch." Stepping out of the courtyard gate, I let out a long sigh of relief. This is just the beginning. Pandora, the debt you owed me from pushing me off the building in our past life, we'll settle it slowly. 6. The alley in the prophetic vision is located at the east end of the village, a necessary path to the old well, flanked by abandoned adobe houses, and is usually deserted. I stood at the mouth of the alley, surveying the place that would become the starting point of my nightmare. The afternoon sun bathed the alley in bright light, a stark contrast to the gloomy, shadowy scene from my premonitory dream. "I need to prepare in advance," I murmured to myself, turning to head towards the back hill. The Spirit Spring secret manual records a special medicinal herb, the bee-attracting grass. The smoke from burning this grass attracts wild bees within a 1 li radius, but is harmless to humans. I cultivated 3 plants in my space, and now they're just what I need. After gathering the herbs, I took a detour to Viper, the bachelor's dilapidated yard. Through the fence, I saw him sharpening a machete and humming a lewd tune. Fighting back my disgust, I quietly sprinkled a packet of special powder onto his sun-drying coat. This was pollen-soaked in Spirit Spring water, which held an irresistible allure for bees. After finishing this, I headed to the Wang residence. Mrs. Wang was hanging laundry in the courtyard and waved to me warmly when she saw me. "Evelina, perfect timing. I've just finished stewing some snow fungus soup." "Madam Wang, I need your help." I lowered my voice. "Could you and Uncle Wang pretend to pass by the old alley in the east of the village after sunset tonight? I'm worried. Someone might be planning something against me." Madam Wang's face changed abruptly. "Who would dare to do such a thing?" "It's not certain yet." I pretended to hesitate. "It might be Viper from the village. He's been staring at me a lot lately. That old scoundrel." Madam Wang's chest heaved with anger. "Don't worry. You're Uncle Wang and I will definitely go. We'll also call a few neighbors to see who dares to touch you." After leaving the Wang household, I visited a few other neighbors we were on good terms with, planting the same seeds of my story to set the stage. Finally, I tucked a few stalks of fireweed into the cracks of the old alley wall, making sure they'd dry out and catch easily before sunset. Everything was in place. All that was left was for the fish to take the bait. At dinner, Pandora was uncharacteristically attentive, constantly serving me more food. Evelina, eat up, you've lost weight lately. I forced a grateful smile, but under the table, I nudged the small knife hidden in my boot with my foot. Tonight, I must make my sister pay the first installment for her sins of the past life. Evelina, come with me to the old well tonight to fetch water, Pandora suggested casually. They say the water is sweetest tonight. I looked up at her, her eyes glinting with malice, yet her lips curled into a sweet, sickly smile. In my past life, I trusted her too easily, which led to my tragic fall from a building. Sure, I agreed readily, watching the triumph flash in her eyes as her scheme succeeded. As night fell, I used the excuse of going to the bathroom to sneak out of the house and head straight to the old alley. The moonlight was like water, casting a pale glow on the earthen walls. I quickly lit the prearranged bee-attracting herbs and ducked into the shadows behind a broken wall. Smoke curled upwards, carrying a faint, sweet fragrance. In less than 10 minutes, a distant buzzing sound grew steadily closer, covering my nose and mouth. I watched as a dark, swarming mass of bees followed the trail of smoke, circling in the air above the alley. Evelina, where are you? Pandora's voice echoed from the alley entrance. Feigning concern, I held my breath, watching her cautiously enter the alley, with the shifty Viper following behind. In the moonlight, Viper's wrinkled face glistened with oil, his eyes constantly darting toward Pandora's. But didn't we agree you'd lure her here? Viper whispered, his hand already restlessly resting on Pandora's shoulder. Pandora slapped his hand away in disgust. What's the rush? That little bitch must be nearby. She raised her voice. Evelina, stop hiding. I see you. Just then, the swarm noticed the pollen on Viper and rushed at him like a black whirlwind. Ah, what the hell? Viper screamed, frantically slapping at his face and head. Pandora turned around in shock, only to be greeted by a few wild bees flying toward her. Get away. Ah, my face, Pandora screamed, flailing her arms wildly, her meticulously styled bun coming undone. Looking like a madwoman, I seized the opportunity to rush out from my hiding place, pretending to be panicked. Sister, Uncle Zhang, what's wrong with you? Viper was already covered in red welts, swollen like a pig's head, and her clothes were torn and disheveled. Pandora was in slightly better shape, but her forehead and neck were also swollen with large bumps, and her carefully applied makeup was smeared. Help! A swarm of bees. Pandora saw me, a flicker of guilt flashing in her eyes before it was replaced by sheer terror. I pretended to be scared and backed away. I'll go get help. With that, I turned and ran, only to coincidentally bump into Madame Wang and her group, who had come running at the sound of the commotion, right at the mouth of the alley. What's going on? What happened? Madame Wang asked, holding a kerosene lamp, with 5 or 6 villagers following behind her. Mrs. Wang, quick, save my sister and Uncle Zhang. They're being swarmed by bees. I cried out in panic, pointing frantically down the alley. The villagers rushed into the alley with torches, and the sight before them left them speechless. Viper was rolling on the ground, his clothes in disarray, while Pandora flailed about pathetically, swatting at imaginary bees and cursing under her breath. Well, if it isn't Evelina and old Zhang, Uncle Wang said with a meaningful lift of his brow. What are a man and a woman, all alone, doing in a dark alley at this hour? Pandora's face went deathly pale. I was just looking for my sister, looking for me. I blinked innocently. But sister, weren't you going to fetch water from the old well? How did you end up here? And with Uncle Zhang too? The villagers exchanged knowing glances. Viper tried to explain, but instead spat out a mouthful of saliva tinged with blood. A bee had stung his tongue. First, let's save him, Mrs. Wang said, trying to suppress a laugh. We need to deal with old Zhang's condition quickly. Bee venom is no joke. On the way back to the village, Pandora limped along behind me, her eyes burning with a hatred that could tear me apart. As we passed a patch of shadow, she suddenly grabbed my wrist, her nails digging deep into my flesh. You did this, she hissed through gritted teeth. You knew we'd be there. I gently pulled my hand free, wearing a look of confusion. Sis, what are you talking about? You're the one who told me to fetch water from the old well. I was wondering what you were doing in that alley, and with Uncle Viper. Shut up, she snapped, causing the villagers in front to turn around. Madame Wang hurried over to shield me, saying, Pandora, why are you yelling at Evelina? If it weren't for her calling us tonight, who knows what would have happened to you and Viper? Pandora opened her mouth, but eventually closed it under the villagers' disdainful gazes, though the venom in her eyes remained unchanged. When they got home, Pandora's disheveled appearance startled her parents. After hearing the whole story, father's face turned ashen. You, a young lady, hanging out with Viper late at night. Do you have any shame left? Dad, I was framed, Pandora cried out, pointing at me. She set me up. Mother frowned. How did Evelina set you up? Didn't you say you wanted to fetch water yourself? I squeezed out a couple of tears at the right moment. Sis, I know you don't like me, But you can't wrong me like this. That night, Pandora was forced to kneel in penitence before the ancestral tablets, while I lay in bed, stroking the little bear hair tie on my wrist, a flicker of vengeful satisfaction rising in my heart. This is just the beginning. Sister 7. By the next morning, the village was already buzzing with tales of Pandora and Viper's scandalous affair, as I was fetching water from the well. A few of the wives deliberately raised their voices. I heard Pandora and old Zhang were caught in the act last night in the alley. TSK, always putting on such airs of purity, and it turns out she's into this sort of thing. I heard they were even swarmed by bees. Must be karma for all the wicked things they've done. I walked quickly with my head down, but I didn't feel the satisfaction I had imagined. My sister caused my tragic death in a past life, and this revenge is not excessive. But why does my heart feel so empty? Evelina, a deep male voice called out from behind. I turned around and saw Ethan standing in the morning light, his military uniform impeccably pressed, his gaze sharp. Commander Ethan. I forced a smile. Why the early visit for an inspection? He took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I heard about what happened last night. My heart skipped a beat, and I gripped the handle of the bucket tightly. It's good that you're okay, he suddenly said. A flicker of an emotion I couldn't decipher in his eyes. Some people with ill intentions will eventually reap what they sow. I looked up in surprise, just catching a fleeting glimpse of tenderness in his eyes. In that moment, I almost blurted out asking if he had also been reborn, but reason ultimately prevailed. Thank you for your concern, I said softly, about to leave, when he handed me a small cloth pouch. Here, take this. Seeing my hesitation, he added, it's some topical medicine. I heard your sister got stunned last night. I took the cloth bundle. The moment our fingertips brushed, the little bear hair tie suddenly grew scalding hot, so hot I nearly cried out. Ethan seemed to have felt it too. He jerked his hand back, a flicker of shock passing through his eyes. I have to go, he said hurriedly, bidding farewell with steps noticeably quicker than usual. Back home, I opened the cloth bundle. Inside were several packets of army-issue ointment and a note folded into a small square. Unfolding it, I saw just one line of text: be careful with the Jade Pendant. There's something strange about it. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan knows about the Jade Pendant, and he even came to remind me himself. Does that mean, as I was pondering this, Pandora suddenly burst through the door, her eyes still swollen? Clearly, she had been crying all night. Her gaze immediately fell on the ointment and the note on the table. What is this? She snatched the note, and her face paled as she read it. Why would Commander Ethan write this to you? What's your relationship? I calmly tipped the note back. Just concerned about your sting wound. That's all. Bullshit, she shrieked. He was clearly warning you about the Jade Pendant. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, her eyes fixed on the bear hair tie. Did you tell him something? What's the big secret with this stupid hair tie? Sis, you're hurting me. I tried to pull away, but her grip only tightened. Pandora, what on earth has gotten into you? Mother rushed over at the sound and snapped sharply when she saw the scene. Pandora let go of her grip, pointing at me and sobbing. Mom, Evelina seduced Officer Ethan, and she's spreading rumors that I'm involved with Viper. She's nothing but a troublemaker. Mother looked suspiciously at the two of us sisters and finally sighed. Evelina, your sister's reputation is damaged now, and things at home are not peaceful. Why don't you stay at the old house by the village entrance for a few days? Come back when the dust settles. My heart sank, but I knew this was Pandora's revenge. However, thinking from another perspective, moving out might actually make it more convenient for me to access the spiritual spring space. Okay, I calmly agreed. Turning around to pack my simple luggage, Pandora stood smugly to the side, whispering, don't think you've won. I know there's something wrong with you, and I'll uncover your secret sooner or later. I paused, looking directly into her eyes. Sister. Grandma appeared in my dream and told me, greed knows no bounds. Like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, some things cannot be forced. Her face suddenly changed, and the jade pendant she always held in her hand clinked to the ground, adding another crack. As I stepped out of the house with my luggage, I glanced back at the old home I had lived in for 20 years. This time, I won't let myself be pushed around anymore, though shabby. The old house at the village entrance marks the beginning of my new life. The little bear hair tie on my wrist felt slightly warm, as if offering me encouragement. I took a deep breath and strode toward the new battlefield. 8. The old house at the village entrance was even more dilapidated than imagined. The thatch on the roof was sparse, and the cobwebs in the corner hung like gauze. I set down my luggage, and the first thing I did was check if the doors and windows were secure. At least it's better than sharing a room with Pandora, I muttered to myself, sweeping the dust off the floor with a broom after tidying up. I locked the door and eagerly entered the spiritual spring space. It had been 3 days since I last came, and the herbs on the black soil had grown taller, but the water level of the spiritual spring had dropped a bit compared to last time. I crouched by the spring and noticed the obvious dark circles under my eyes reflected in the water. Did my precognitive ability consume the energy of the spiritual spring? I whispered, and the water rippled as if in response. The spiritual springs Secret scripture automatically flipped to a new page, revealing the text, to foresee the future, to go against the heavens, requires the replenishment of spiritual energy. I frowned, pondering the meaning of this sentence. It seems that the ability to foresee is not unlimited. Each activation consumes spiritual spring energy. This explains why I've been feeling so exhausted lately. I need to find a way to replenish spiritual energy, I muttered, my gaze falling on a small blank spot at the edge of the black soil. The ancient texts mention that planting rare plants and harvesting their fruits can replenish the spiritual spring. In the days that followed, I spent my days running around town and my nights studying the secrets of the spirit spring. Through Mrs. Wang's connections, I rented a small stall in the county's medicinal market, specializing in rare herbs cultivated with the spirit spring. The income was much better than expected, and I had saved nearly 10,000 yuan in less than 2 weeks. One evening, I was cultivating a new batch of moonlight orchids in my space. This type of orchid is only recorded in ancient texts. It has long since vanished in reality. Its petals are translucent and emit a subtle fragrance under the moonlight, making it an excellent ingredient for high-end perfumes. Evelina, are you home? Mrs. Wang's voice came from outside the courtyard. I quickly exited the space, brushed off the dirt on my clothes, and went to open the door. Behind Mrs. Wang stood a middle-aged man in a well-tailored suit, who looked every bit the city dweller. This is Manager Ma from the county's perfume factory, Mrs. Wang introduced. He saw the sachet you gave me and insisted on meeting you. Manager Ma extended his hand warmly. Ms. Evelina, the fragrance blend in your sachet is extraordinary. Our factory is willing to purchase the formula at a premium price. My interest was piqued, but I feigned reluctance. It's a family secret. My grandmother made me promise on her deathbed never to share it. Understand, Manager Ma quickly said. Could you supply the spices regularly? The price is negotiable, and so, I signed my first business contract, agreeing to supply 2 caddies of secret family recipe spices monthly, with an advance payment of 5,000 yuan. After seeing off Manager Ma, Madame Wang winked at me. Evelina, you're going to get rich. I handed Madame Wang a red envelope. Thanks to your introduction, unable to refuse any longer, Mrs. Wang accepted the red envelope and lowered her voice. By the way, she said, your sister has been hanging around that officer Ethan a lot lately. The whole village is talking. My finger twitched, but I quickly regained my composure. Her affairs are none of my concern, I replied. You'd better be careful, Mrs. Wang sighed. Yesterday, right outside the village committee office, I heard her tell the village chief that you've been possessed by an evil spirit. That's how you suddenly know medicine. After seeing Mrs. Wang off, I stood in the courtyard, lost in thought. Pandora is indeed relentless. She's out to completely ruin my reputation. A cool breeze passed by, bringing a chill. I rubbed the teddy bear hair tie on my wrist, pondering my next move. 9. The next morning, I deliberately went to the well when the village was most crowded. A few women were gossiping about Pandora and Ethan's romantic affair when they saw me and quickly gathered around. Evelina, I heard you can exorcise evil spirits. My son Leo keeps crying at night. Miss Evelina, I've been suffering from back pain. I smiled and replied, seizing the opportunity to say loudly, Dear aunts, all this skill of mine was taught to me in a dream by my grandmother. She said there would be a mountain flood in our village this year, and asked me to remind everyone to prepare in advance. The crowd instantly fell silent, and an old man sneered, What nonsense is this little girl talking? Where would a mountain flood come from in this dry season? I didn't argue, just said mysteriously, Grandmother said that 3 days from now, at the hour of you, if you see dark clouds like a lid over West Mountain, that will be the sign. 3 days later in the evening, as I had predicted, rare dark clouds gathered on the top of West Mountain, shaped like an inverted pot. The villagers stirred, rushing over to ask me for details. Grandma said that a few households in the low-lying area need to temporarily move out. I pointed to the west end of the village, especially the households of Uncle Li, Aunt Wang, and Uncle Zhao. They are in the most danger. Most villagers were skeptical, but the 3 families I mentioned, having experienced my clairvoyance before, reluctantly packed their valuables and moved to stay with relatives. That night at midnight, the rain poured down in torrents, and a flash flood truly broke out. The flood destroyed 5 houses at the west end of the village, including the courtyards of Uncle Li and his 2 neighbors. Thanks to the early evacuation, there were no casualties. As soon as dawn broke, I was awakened by the commotion of the villagers. When I opened the door, I saw a crowd outside the courtyard, and the leading elders immediately knelt down upon seeing me. Evelina is truly a living goddess. Thanks to your warning, otherwise my whole family would have been doomed. From now on, we'll believe whatever you say. I quickly helped the elderly to their feet, but felt no joy in my heart. While it's good to use precognitive abilities to save lives, the spiritual spring's water level noticeably drops each time. This morning, when I checked, the spring was only half full. From the back of the crowd, I caught sight of Pandora's twisted face and Ethan's pensive expression. Pandora glared at me with gritted teeth, while Ethan, his gaze was so complex I couldn't decipher it. 10. After the villagers dispersed, Ethan stayed behind. Evelina, can we talk in private? He stood straight in his military uniform, his tone formal, but his eyes held the warmth I was familiar with. I led him inside and poured a cup of coarse tea. As he took the teacup, his fingers brushed mine ever so slightly, sending a jolt of electricity through me that almost made me drop it. Your grandmother's dream was remarkably accurate, he began directly, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. It was too precise to be just a dream. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. I assume Commander Ethan doesn't believe in such things. I believe in facts, he said, setting down the teacup and lowering his voice, like the fact of being reborn. The teacup in my hand clattered to the ground, splashing hot water onto my trouser leg. Could it be that he is, just as I suspected? Ethan bent down to pick up the teacup and whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, I'm just like you. I remember everything from our past life." I trembled all over, unsure if it was from fear or excitement. Ethan from my past life was the same, always liked to speak close to my ear. The warm breath brushing against my neck. "Prove it to me." I suppressed my emotions and stared directly into his eyes. Ethan pulled out a small notebook from the inner pocket of his military uniform, flipped to a page, and handed it to me. It read, "Top floor of the Pearl Hotel, moonlight and promises." My eyes instantly welled up with tears. That was the place where he proposed to me in a past life. Back then, he said, "The moonlight is my witness. For this life and the next, it will only be you, Evelina." He reached out to wipe my tears, but abruptly pulled his hand back just before touching my cheek, his expression suddenly changing. "Someone's coming." The courtyard gate was violently pushed open, and Pandora's sharp voice rang out, "Commander Ethan, there you are. The village is looking for you to attend a meeting." Ethan quickly reverted to his military posture and strode out of the house. "Comrade Pandora, please lead the way." Pandora looked suspiciously at both me and Ethan. Suddenly, the jade pendant in her hand lit up, a faint green light that disappeared in an instant. But we all saw it. Ethan's expression changed slightly, and he quickly left. Pandora, on the other hand, was like a discoverer of a new continent, staring intently at the pendant and then at Ethan's retreating figure, her eyes gleaming with a wild light. "I see," she muttered, then glared at me fiercely. "Ethan is mine. You'll never take him away from me." I closed the door and slid down to the floor, leaning against it. There was so much information today. Ethan is also a reincarnator, and Pandora's jade pendant reacted to Ethan. The little bear hair tie on my wrist suddenly grew hot. When I entered the space to check, the sight before me made my heart tighten. The spiritual spring water level had dropped again, and this time, a small gray-white area appeared at the edge of the black soil, as if it had been contaminated by something. The ancient tome automatically opened, revealing a warning: the evil jade awakens, disturbing the spiritual spring. Twin forces clash. Beware, beware. The evil jade, is it Pandora's pendant? I reached out to touch the text, but it dissipated, replaced by a blurry image. Ethan lay in a dark space, covered in blood, a dagger piercing his chest. I abruptly exited the space, my back soaked with cold sweat. Is this a glimpse of the future? Is Ethan in danger? Just as I was feeling unsettled, the courtyard gate was knocked on again. This time it was Mrs. Wang, her face deathly pale. "Evelina, quick, Commander Ethan's comrade was injured during training on the back hill. He's bleeding heavily, and the town hospital is too far." Without a second thought, I grabbed my medical kit and ran after Mrs. Wang. On the back hillside, a group of soldiers had gathered. In the middle lay a young soldier with a branch protruding from his thigh. Blood had already soaked through half his trouser leg. Ethan was directing the emergency response when he saw me arrive. A flicker of relief crossed his eyes. "Evelina knows medicine. Let her take a look." I examined the wound. A branch had pierced a major artery. Conventional methods wouldn't stop the bleeding. Pretending to fetch supplies from the medical kit, I discreetly drew out a single drop of the mystical spring water and let it fall onto the wound. "We need to operate immediately to remove the branch," I said, looking up at Ethan. "But for now, we can use my special medicine to stop the bleeding." The spring water took effect almost instantly, and the bleeding stopped swiftly. The medics were astonished, while Ethan gave me a deep look, his eyes seeming to say, "I know what you used." After the soldier was carried away on a stretcher, Ethan deliberately lingered behind and, seizing a moment when no one was looking, slipped me a note: "Midnight tonight, at the usual spot." I clenched the note tightly, my heart pounding like a drum. The old spot, the little riverbank we used to visit on our dates in our past life. He remembers it too. After returning to my room, just as I was about to rest a while to prepare for the evening rendezvous, the space suddenly pulled me in of its own accord. The spirit spring churned violently, and a new scene materialized on its surface. Pandora was sneaking into Ethan's temporary quarters, pouring some kind of powder into his water flask. The scene shifted. After drinking the water, Ethan collapsed unconscious. Pandora pressed a jade pendant against his forehead, and the pendant emitted an eerie green light. A chill ran through me as I withdrew From the space, tonight's meeting is dangerous. I must warn Ethan. As midnight approached, I slipped a small knife and a vial of spirit spring antidote into my pocket and quietly made my way toward the creek. The moonlight, fluid as water, bathed the path in a silvery white glow. In the distance, a tall, straight-backed figure was already waiting beneath the willow tree by the river. I quickened my pace. But when I was still about 10 meters away, I saw another figure dart out from behind the tree. It was Pandora. She was holding something shiny in her hand, stealthily approaching Ethan, who had his back to her. "Ethan, behind you," I screamed, charging forward without a second thought. 11, Ethan, watch out behind you. My scream tore through the night. Ethan reacted quickly, sidestepping Pandora's sneak attack. In the moonlight, the scissors in her hand glinted with a cold light. "Pandora, what are you doing?" Ethan barked sharply, his military authority instantly evident, seeing her sneak attack fail. Pandora suddenly knelt down, holding the jade pendant above her head with both hands. "Commander Ethan, please touch this pendant. It needs your strength." I rushed to Ethan's side, watching Pandora. Her eyes burned with an unnatural fervor, a strange smile playing on her lips. "Have you lost your mind?" I tried to pull her up, sneaking up on someone with scissors in the dead of night. "Do you want to go to jail?" Pandora shook off my hand, her gaze fixed solely on Ethan. "Captain Ethan, this jade pendant is a treasure, but it only responds to you. Please, just touch it." Ethan frowned at me, his eyes full of questions. I subtly shook my head. "Although I don't know what Pandora is up to, it's definitely nothing good. Comrade Pandora, please calm down." Ethan took a step back to maintain a safe distance. "If there's any issue, let's discuss it at the village committee tomorrow. Please go home now." Pandora's expression twisted instantly. She jumped up, the scissors pointed directly at my throat. "It's all your fault. You stole my chance, both in my past life and this one." Ethan lunged forward, disarmed her effortlessly, and pinned her hands behind her back. "What did you just say? A past life?" It was only then that Pandora realized she had let something slip. Her face turning pale, she struggled desperately. "Let me go. I didn't say anything about a past life. You must have misheard." I picked up the jade pendant that had fallen to the ground, and it felt ice cold to the touch, as if I were holding a piece of frozen ice. What's even stranger is that faint, dark green light is seeping through the cracks on the jade pendant. "This jade pendant is off." I handed it to Ethan. "Look at these cracks." As soon as Ethan touched the jade pendant, a sudden change occurred. It began to violently vibrate and emitted a piercing shriek, with the green light from the cracks intensifying. Taking the opportunity, Pandora broke free, snatched the pendant back, turned, and ran, quickly disappearing into the night. 12, Ethan and I stared at each other. "She was reborn too," Ethan whispered, his eyes filled with shock. I nodded. Then a sudden wave of dizziness hit me, and I almost lost my balance. Ethan quickly steadied me. "What's wrong?" "It's nothing. Probably just scared." I forced a smile, not mentioning the anomaly in the spiritual spring space. "The most important thing now is to figure out Ethan's identity. Do you really remember your past life?" Ethan led me to sit by the river, the moonlight casting a silver outline on his sharply defined profile. He gently held my hand, his palm warm and dry. "I remember everything," he said in a low voice. "I remember our first meeting at the county hospital, how you healed my leg injury, the moment I proposed to you." His fingers brushed over the little bear hair tie on my wrist. "I remember this too. In our past life, it was a jade pendant, wasn't it?" My eyes grew hot, and tears welled up uncontrollably. On so many lonely nights, I had wished that he, too, could have been reborn. Now that my dream has come true, I don't know what to say. Ethan gently wiped away my tears. "After being reborn, I've been looking for you. I applied to come to this village for research because I remembered you said your hometown was here, but in our previous life, we met 3 years later," I said, puzzled. "The timeline has changed," Ethan said gravely. "After being reborn, I found many things are different from my previous life. The strangest thing is that my military rank is 2 levels higher than it was at the same time in my previous life, as if someone had paved the way for me in advance." My heart skipped a beat. Could it be that we're not the only ones reborn? Who else is secretly altering fate? 13, Ethan, Pandora's jade pendant. It's really sinister. Ethan frowned. The moment I touched it, some strange images flashed through my mind, an ancient tomb, and a blood-red book. I shivered. This description is eerily similar to the sinister jade warned about in the Link 1 mysterious code. Ethan suddenly hugged me tightly, his grip so strong it almost took my breath away. "Evelina, in this life, I will never let anyone hurt you, especially not your sister." Leaning against his solid chest, listening to his strong heartbeat, I suddenly felt that no difficulty was too great to overcome. "As long as we have each other, we can face any danger. Here, this is for you." Ethan took a dog tag from around his neck and placed it around mine. "It has a tracking chip inside, if you're ever in Danger, I can find you immediately. The dog tag was still warm from his body heat. I carefully tucked it into my collar, letting it rest against my chest. On the way back to the old house, my steps felt much lighter, although the threat of Pandora still loomed. I was no longer fighting alone. Ethan and I, we are one. In the days that followed, the village underwent a dramatic transformation. Because my accurate prediction of the flood spread far and wide, people from neighboring villages come to seek medical advice and divination every day. I cautiously used my spiritual spring abilities while organizing the villagers to grow high-value medicinal herbs. Evelina, the County Agricultural Bureau is here, and they want to promote your farming experience. Mrs. Wine excitedly told me one noon at the village committee. I met the expert team from the County Agricultural Bureau. They praised my invention of the planting technique without reservation and decided on the spot to designate our village as a demonstration base. Comrade Evelina, we would like you to take charge of the cooperative, the director said, shaking my hand. The county will provide startup funds and technical support. I was so astonished that I couldn't speak. In my previous life at this time, I was a pitiful outcast despised by my family, but now I am to lead the whole village to prosperity. I object. A sharp voice cut through the air. Pandora stood in the doorway, her face dark, her so-called techniques are a complete sham. There's nothing ancestral about them. The meeting room fell silent in an instant. Every eye in the room was fixed on me, waiting for my response. I rose calmly to my feet. Sis, if my methods are a sham, then how do you explain the superior quality of my herbs? Why do they command such a high price? Because you used witchcraft. Pandora shrieked hysterically. My grandmother told me before she died that you were possessed by an evil spirit. The villagers stirred, some of their faces contorted with fear. Just as I was about to retort, a calm, steady male voice came from behind. I can attest that Comrade Evelina's techniques are entirely scientific. Ethan strode into the conference room, his military uniform impeccably pressed, radiating an aura of formidable authority. An elderly man with silver hair followed closely behind him. This is Professor Zhang from the Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences, a specialist in traditional farming techniques. Ethan introduced. He has analyzed Evelina's cultivation methods and found them to be an innovative fusion of ancient practices and modern science. Professor Zhang nodded with a smile. Comrade Evelina has successfully revived many ancient cultivation techniques that were on the brink of being lost. It's truly remarkable. The situation reversed in an instant. The villagers cheered. And even the bureau chief looked at me with newfound respect. Pandora stood in the corner, her face ashen, a new crack having appeared in the jade pendant in her hand. After the meeting, Ethan quietly told me, I was the one who invited Professor Zhang. I remembered he was your idol before the reset, so a warm feeling spread through my chest. He even remembered such a small detail. 14. However, the good times didn't last. That night, when I entered the spirit spring space, the sight before my eyes made my heart clench. The water level of the spring had dropped by nearly a third again. The grayish-white area at the edge of the black soil had expanded, and that pallor was creeping toward the center. What's even more terrifying is that I began to feel an inexplicable sense of fatigue and dizziness. When I looked in the mirror, I found my face as pale as a ghost, with deep dark circles under my eyes. What's going on? I searched through the spiritual spring canon and finally found a small note in the corner of a page. Spiritual energy stolen, essence damaged, if not stopped promptly. The master is in grave danger. I gasped sharply. Someone is siphoning the energy from my spirit spring. When I think about Pandora's strange jade pendant and her odd behavior, the answer becomes crystal clear. Early the next morning, I forced my weakened body to go find Ethan, but a sudden, sharp pain struck me down halfway there, my vision darkening. I steadied myself against a roadside tree trunk. Suddenly, I saw a vision. Pandora was kneeling in her backyard, cutting her palm with a knife and letting the blood drip onto the jade pendant. The pendant greedily absorbed the blood, and the green light glowing from its cracks grew more and more intense. After the vision faded, I was drenched in a cold sweat. This is a warning triggered automatically by precognitive abilities. Pandora is activating the jade pendant with a blood sacrifice, and the pendant is stealing my spiritual energy. I must stop her, or I will be drained of my spiritual energy before she even acts. But how can I stop her? Direct conflict is too dangerous, especially now that she has acquired sinister powers. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was a text from Ethan. Emergency mission, away for 3 days. Keep your military tag on. Be careful with the jade pendant. I gripped my phone tightly, feeling both disappointed and relieved. Disappointed that he couldn't be there in times of danger. Relieved that he didn't have to face this supernatural threat immediately back at the old house. I mustered my strength and entered the spirit spring space, hoping to find a way to counter the jade Pendant. This time, the scene within the space had deteriorated further, the spring water was nearly depleted, 2/3 of the black earth had turned ashen gray, and even the glow of the ancient tome had dimmed considerably. Desperate, I knelt by the spring's edge when I suddenly noticed the tome had turned to a completely new page. On it were drawn two interlinked circles, one lush and vibrant, the other dull and parched. A thin red line connects the two circles. Below the image, a line of small text reads, Twin realms, one pure, one corrupt, sever the line, break the bond, and evil shall not prevail. It all clicked into place. So, Pandora's Jade Pendant also contained a realm, a twin to my own spirit spring realm. She is activating the evil jade space through blood sacrifice and using it to steal my spiritual energy. I must find a way to sever the connection between the two spaces, but how? The ancient texts offer no answer. After exiting the space, I lay weakly in bed, barely able to lift a hand. The sunlight outside the window was so warm, yet I felt a bone-chilling cold. Is this the consequence of having my psychic energy stolen? In my dazed state, I heard the sound of the courtyard gate being pushed open. Struggling to open my eyes, I saw Pandora standing by the bed, a triumphant smile on her face. Sister, how did you get so sick? She asked insincerely, playing with the jade pendant that glowed with a green light. Should I call a doctor for you? I wanted to shout, but no sound came out. I wanted to move, but it felt like I was bound by invisible ropes. All I could do was watch as she leaned down and whispered in my ear, Don't worry, the pain will be over soon. Once you're dead, your precious one and Captain Ethan will be mine. 15. I wanted to fight back, but I couldn't move a single finger. My eyelids felt like lead weights, forced to slowly close. The last thing I saw was Pandora's triumphant, twisted grin and the jade pendant in her hand, its green light blazing violently. Just before my consciousness sank into darkness, the little bare hair tie on my wrist suddenly grew scalding hot, almost enough to burn my skin. A surge of warmth flowed from the hair tie into my body, momentarily dispelling some of the chill. My eyes snapped open, and I gasped for air. Pandora was gone, and I was left alone in the room outside. The sky had darkened, and I had been unconscious all day. Struggling to get up, I immediately checked the spiritual spring space. The sight made my heart tightened. The spring was nearly dried up, the black land had turned gray, the secret scripture lay on the ground, its light flickering like a candle in the wind. The most terrifying part was a crack that appeared at the edge of the space. Peering through it, I saw another dim, gray void, and within it, suspended, was a jade pendant shimmering with an emerald light. It was Pandora's. Is this the twin space? I murmured to myself, reaching out a hand to touch the crack. Don't. The ancient tome suddenly flipped its pages on its own, revealing giant, glaring words of warning. The cursed jade space. Touch it and you die. I jerked my hand back. The tome continued to display. The true jade lies in the tomb. This is a counterfeit. The twins are linked. Destroy the true one. Sever the link. My eyes widened. The real jade is in the tomb. Grandma's tomb. Then what Pandora is holding? My train of thought was shattered by the commotion outside the courtyard, dragging my weakened body to the window. I saw a group of villagers running through the village with torches. Someone shouted, Another cow is dead. All its blood is gone. It's the work of evil spirits. Go find Evelina. She knows about these things. I forced myself to straighten my clothes, and the moment I opened the door, I was surrounded by several villagers. Their faces were pale with terror, all talking over each other as they described the strange occurrences in the village. For 3 nights in a row, livestock had been dying mysteriously, drained of all their blood, their bodies desiccated like mummies. Take me to see it, I said. The cattle shed at Uncle Lee's place in the east of the village was already crowded with people. Upon seeing me, the crowd parted to make way. The carcass lay on the haystack, indeed as they described, withered all over, with eyes reduced to 2 black holes. What was even more eerie was that there were 2 tiny holes on the cow's neck, surrounded by skin with a spiderweb-like pattern of gray-green, exactly the same as the cracks on the Pandora jade pendant. What could have done this? Uncle Lee asked tremulously. Just as I was about to answer, I suddenly felt a strong wave of dizziness and nearly fell. Fortunately, someone caught me. I turned my head and saw Ethan. Didn't he say he was leaving for 3 days? Why is he back early? Everyone, disperse and let Evelina rest for a moment. Ethan's voice was steady and commanding, and the villagers immediately complied. He half-supported me to a secluded spot, his face grave. The situation is worse than we thought. Pandora, she activated the jade pendant, I said weakly, but it's not the real one. The genuine jade is still in Grandma's grave. Ethan's eyes flashed with shock. How did you know? It was shown in the spiritual spring space. I briefly explained the matter of the twin spaces. We must stop her from finding the real jade pendant, or else. Before the words were finished, a piercing cackle suddenly rang out in the village. We turned toward the sound and saw Pandora standing on her own rooftop, the jade pendant in her hand glowing brightly with green light, illuminating her twisted, crazed face. Haha, you pathetic insects. Her voice became unusually sharp, as if multiple people were speaking at once. Now kneel and beg for mercy, and I might spare your lives. The villagers were terrified beyond measure. Some already kneeling, Pandora triumphantly raised the jade pendant, and Green light formed a beam that shot straight into the sky. The clouds in the night sky were dyed an eerie green and began to spin rapidly. She can't control that power anymore, Ethan whispered. I'll stop her. You go to Grandma's grave and make sure the real Jade Pendant is safe. But you, Ethan kissed my forehead, the sudden intimacy taking me by surprise. Trust me, I have special equipment. He pulled a small metal box from his military jacket pocket, opened it to reveal a bullet engraved with runes, special exorcism bullet. He explained briefly, originally meant for dealing with border cults. I nodded and turned to run toward the back hill. Though my body was weak, the instinct to survive made me run swiftly. The little bear hair tie on my wrist kept emitting a faint warmth, sustaining my last ounce of strength. Grandma's grave was halfway up the back hill, looking especially lonely under the moonlight. As I approached, I gasped. The grave had been dug up. The coffin lid was pushed aside, and my grandmother's body was exposed to the moonlight. Trembling, I moved closer and was astonished to see my grandmother's hands folded over her chest, with something seemingly pressed beneath her palms. Gently moving her cold hands aside, I found a jade pendant exactly like the one in my memory lying there, except this one was completely white and flawless. This is the real one. I carefully picked up the jade pendant the moment it touched my hand. A wave of warmth coursed through my body, momentarily dispelling the feeling of weakness. Just then, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw Pandora standing at the edge of the tomb. Her clothes were tattered, her eyes glowed with an eerie green light, and the cracks in the counterfeit jade pendant in her hand had spread across its entire surface, as if it might shatter at any moment. So it was here, she grinned maliciously. Hand over the real jade. Not a chance. I clutched the real jade pendant to my chest. Look at yourself. What has the evil power done to you? Pandora looked down at herself. Faint green light flowed beneath her skin, as if countless tiny insects were crawling beneath it, but she only laughed. So what? This power makes me stronger than ever before. She leaped into the grave and lunged at me. I barely dodged, but my weakened body was still knocked to the ground by her. The genuine jade pendant flew from my hand and landed beside my grandmother's remains. Pandora pounced toward the jade pendant, but just as she was about to touch it, she let out a shriek. A blinding white light suddenly erupted from the pendant, violently repelling her. Impossible, she shrieked, the green light from the fake jade pendant in her hand flaring violently. I am the chosen one. A beam of green light shot from the counterfeit pendant and struck the genuine one. The two forces collided midair, and the resulting shockwave sent both Pandora and me tumbling to the ground. Struggling to my feet, I saw the two pendants hovering in the air, one white, one green, locked in a tense standoff. What's even stranger is that the little bear hair tie on my wrist also began to glow, resonating with the white light of the genuine jade pendant. Pandora noticed this as well, her eyes flashing with mad jealousy. It's always you, always you. She suddenly changed her target and lunged at me, shouting, if you're dead, the treasure is mine. At the last moment, a dark shadow leaped down from above the tomb, knocking Pandora aside. It was Ethan. His face was smeared with blood, his military uniform was torn, but his eyes remained sharp as knives. Evelina, catch. He tossed me a military dagger. Use this to sever the connection. I caught the dagger. Utterly bewildered, Ethan shouted, look at the ground, while fending off the frenzied Pandora. I looked down and was stunned. Countless thin red lines, like blood vessels, had appeared on the ground, extending from Pandora's wrist. Some connected to the fake jade pendant, while others were connected to the little bear hair tie on my own wrist. This is the physical manifestation of the twin space, I suddenly realized, and raised my dagger to slash at those red lines. No, Pandora let out a scream that sounded inhuman, and the fake jade pendant glowed intensely green. Ethan was flung away by an invisible force and slammed into the tomb wall. At the moment the red thread was severed, both jade pendants emitted a blinding light. A sharp pain shot through the cord, as if something had been brutally torn apart. After the intense light, the counterfeit jade pendant fell to the ground with a crack and shattered into pieces. Pandora collapsed to the ground, clawing at her arm in agony as the green light beneath her skin raced wildly. The genuine jade pendant drifted slowly back into my hand, its white light now much gentler. My first instinct was to check on Ethan. He had already gotten to his feet, looking disheveled but otherwise unharmed. We need to get back to the village, now, Ethan said, helping me up. The villagers are under the influence of a sinister energy. They've started attacking each other. 16. Before leaving, I took one last look at my grandmother's body. Strangely, her face looked more peaceful than when she was buried. Even with a hint of a smile, I gently closed the coffin lid again, promising to rebury her later. On the way back to the village, the true jade pendant continued to emit a warm white light, dispelling the surrounding evil energy. I feel a faint strength returning to my body, but the spiritual spring space remains closed, inaccessible. The village is in chaos. The villagers affected by the evil energy wander like zombies, attacking anyone they see. Ethan shields me, dodging several waves of attacks, and we retreat toward the old house. The military has sent people, Ethan whispered, but they won't arrive until morning. We have to hold out for the night. We had just returned to the old house when Ethan's military communicator buzzed. His Face turned grim as he answered the call. "What is it?" I asked. "I've been ordered to report back immediately," he said, clenching his fist. "It's an urgent mission." My heart sank at this most dangerous moment. The only person who could protect me was leaving. Ethan saw my fear and took my hand. "I won't abandon you, but orders are orders. Go ahead." I forced back my tears. "I have a genuine jade pendant to protect me." Ethan hesitated for a moment, then suddenly took off a necklace from around his neck, which had an ancient-looking coin hanging from it. "This is a family heirloom that can ward off evil and misfortune. Keep it." Just as he put the necklace around my neck, the communicator rang again. This time it was even more urgent. With a helpless sigh, Ethan quickly kissed my forehead. "Lock all the doors and windows. Don't open them for anyone. The military will be here by morning." After seeing Ethan off, I locked all the doors and windows and drew the curtains. The genuine jade pendant lay on the table, emitting a steady white glow. I tried to enter the spirit spring space again, but still failed. But when I held the genuine jade pendant, a message suddenly appeared in my mind. When the spirit spring merges with the black soil, it can produce a sacred antidote. However, the space will be destroyed, so be cautious. A shiver ran through my body. This was the way to save the villagers. But the cost was losing the spirit spring space. Without hesitation, I clenched the jade pendant. "Tell me how." The jade pendant flashed with a white light, and the intricate steps of a ritual appeared in my mind. The genuine jade pendant and the hair tie must be buried together in black soil, while chanting a specific spell to fuse the two forces. The problem is, I can't access the space right now. How do I bury the items? As if responding to my confusion, the bare hair tie on my wrist suddenly grew warm. Immediately after, a small black hole appeared in front of me, just large enough for a hand to fit through. This is the last chance. I took a deep breath, stuffed the real jade pendant and hair tie into the black hole together, and recited the incantation as instructed in my mind. With the spirit spring as the guide and the black soil as the foundation, sacrifice space to save all living beings. The black hole violently shook, and a dazzling white light erupted from it. A searing, heart-wrenching pain tore through me, as if a piece of my very soul had been ripped away. As the light faded, the black hole vanished, the little bare hair tie on my wrist was gone too. In its place, on the table, appeared a small vial of crystalline liquid, the elixir of antidote. The spirit spring space was gone forever. A wave of emptiness and loss washed over me, but I steeled myself almost immediately. Trading space for hundreds of lives is a worthy bargain. Outside the window, the villagers' howls grew closer. I tightened my grip on the life-saving potion, ready to face the final darkness before dawn. 17. At the first light of dawn, I clutched the bottle of antidote and peered through a crack in the window to survey the situation outside. The villagers were still wandering about, but their movements were much slower than last night, like toys with unwound springs. After the genuine jade pendant merged with the hair cord, I lost access to the spiritual spring space, but a warm current began to flow slowly through my meridians. I tried to channel this power to my fingertips and was surprised to see a faint white light actually emerge. Is this the power of the real jade pendant? I muttered to myself, gently pushing open the door. It was Aunt Jane next door who noticed me first. She turned her head mechanically, her eyes dull and lifeless, a strange smile hanging on her lips. "Evelina, the immortal Pandora is looking for you." "Pandora, the immortal fairy?" I was startled. "Overnight, Pandora has proclaimed herself an immortal." Aunt Jane suddenly lunged at me, her bony fingers clawing toward my face. I sidestepped, then gently tapped her forehead. A flash of white light vanished from my fingertip, and Zhang shuddered, the murkiness in her eyes gradually clearing. What's happening to me?" She looked around in confusion, then covered her mouth in horror upon seeing the other villagers. "Oh, heavens above, Aunt Zhang, go home, lock your door, and don't open it for anyone," I whispered urgently before continuing on my way. Each time I encountered a villager under control, I would touch their forehead with the white light from my fingertip. Most people could snap out of it immediately, but a few with too much evil energy required a bit more effort. When I reached the center of the village, I stopped in my tracks. Pandora, no, now she should be called the monster controlled by the evil Jade, was standing on the well platform, looking down at the entire village. Her clothes had turned into an eerie dark green, with faint green light flowing beneath her skin, and her face was twisted in a way that was no longer human. Dozens of villagers knelt below the well, mechanically repeating, "Greetings, immortal Pandora, greetings, immortal Pandora, sister, you've finally come." Pandora's voice became layered, as if several people were speaking at once. "Look at my followers, how devout they are." I gripped the vial tightly. "Pandora, wake up, that jade pendant is draining your life." She laughed, the sound piercing my eardrums. "Life, what is that? What I have now is power, infinite power." She raised her hand. palm up, and a green light coalesced into shape. Kneel, worship me like they do, and I might spare your life. You're insane. I slowly backed away, searching for cover. Where is the real Jade Pendant? Pandora's expression twisted into a snarl. Shut up. That should have been mine. Grandma was biased. She only told you the location of the real pendant on her deathbed. She suddenly leapt down from the well's edge, moving with inhuman speed. But it doesn't matter. Once I kill you, the real pendant will naturally accept me as its master. I turned and ran, Pandora's shrill laughter close on my heels. After turning down a few alleys, I ducked into an abandoned woodshed and held my breath. Outside the door, Pandora's footsteps halted, playing hide-and-seek. Little sister, her voice seemed to drift, now near, now far. I remember you always loved this game as a child, but I was the one who always found you. And this time will be no different. The woodshed door was suddenly flung open by an unseen force. Pandora stood in the doorway, her eyes blazing with an intense green light. She reached out, and an invisible hand seemed to clamp around my throat, lifting me clean off the ground. Found you, she sneered. Tightening her grip, I struggled desperately, pulling the medicine bottle from my pocket and hurling it with all my strength at her. The bottle traced an arc through the air, striking her right between the eyebrows. Ah! Pandora screamed in pain, releasing her hold on me. The potion splashed across her face, releasing a plume of white smoke. She clawed frantically at her own face as the green light beneath her skin surged violently. Seizing the chance, I scrambled to my feet and ran, but within a few steps, I was surrounded by a crowd of controlled villagers. They advanced with expressionless faces, their eyes flickering with the same green light as Pandora's. Get her, Pandora shrieked from behind. I'll carve out her heart myself. The villagers swarmed forward. I darted left and right, felling a few with bolts of white light from my fingertips, but more closed in. Just as I was about to be overwhelmed, a dark figure descended from above and, with a few swift moves, took down a circle of villagers. 18, Ethan, I exclaimed in surprise. He was dressed in full combat gear, his face painted with camouflage, and his eyes held the familiar determination. Evelina, come with me. Ethan pulled me out of the encirclement and darted into a hidden path. Behind us, Pandora's scream echoed through the entire village. Find them for me. We hid in a cellar. Once Ethan confirmed it was safe, he immediately checked my injuries. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, grabbing his hand. Why did you come back? Weren't you on an urgent mission? The mission is here. Ethan lowered his voice. The military detected anomalous magnetic field fluctuations and sent our special paranormal events unit to investigate. He took an instrument from his waist, which displayed intense fluctuations. This reading, it's reached disaster level. I briefly explained the situation with Pandora and the Jade Pendant. Ethan's face grew increasingly grave. We must subdue her quickly, or else the evil energy spreading to nearby towns will be catastrophic. I have a plan, I said. The power of the genuine Jade Pendant still resides within me. If I can get close to Pandora, perhaps I can purify the evil energy within her. Ethan shook his head. It's too dangerous. She's completely under the control of the evil Jade. She's no longer your sister. No, she's still struggling. I recalled what Pandora had just said. She said Grandma only told me the location of the real Jade Pendant, but in fact, I found it in the tomb. Grandma didn't tell anyone. Ethan's eyes lit up. You mean, the evil Jade is altering her memories, deepening her hatred for me? I clenched my fists. The real Pandora is still inside, and I must save her. Ethan pondered for a moment, then suddenly took out a metal box from his backpack. Use this then, a military-grade psychic inhibitor. It can temporarily block the power of the evil Jade, but there's only one chance, and it must be used at close range. We came up with a simple plan. Ethan would create a distraction outside to draw Pandora's attention, while I would use that chance to get close and use the suppressor. Be careful, Ethan said, holding me tight before we set off. Don't leave me again this time. I won't, I murmured against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. In this lifetime, we'll grow old together. 19. Ethan charged out first. After a few gunshots, chaos erupted outside. I quietly circled around behind Pandora and saw her frantically firing green energy bolts in Ethan's direction. Damn soldier, you were the one who helped her in our past life, Pandora shrieked. This time, I'm going to kill you all. I crept closer, my heart pounding like a drum. When I was just 3 steps away, Pandora suddenly turned around, a sinister smile spreading across her face. I knew you'd come from behind, little sister. A green light struck my chest, and I was thrown several meters, crashing heavily to the ground. The inhibitor slipped from my hand and slid to Pandora's feet. What's this? Trying to use it against me, she picked up the inhibitor and crushed it into scrap with a gentle squeeze. It's useless, sister. I am invincible now. Ethan tried to rush over to save me, but was held back by a group of villagers. Pandora slowly approached, looking down at me from her superior position. Do you know why I hate you so much? I struggled to prop myself up. Because of the Jade Pendant. No, she suddenly erupted in fury. It's because you always get the best of everything. Grandma's favor, Ethan's love, the villagers' respect. Even after being reborn, you got a better spiritual spring space. Her voice returned to its original tone, and the green light in her eyes dimmed for a moment. Why? Are you always the lucky one? I looked at her contorted face and suddenly understood the root of it all. Sis, you're wrong. Grandma loved you just the same. You just never saw it. Nonsense. Pandora raised her hand to attack again but suddenly froze. The green light beneath her skin began to fluctuate violently, and fine cracks appeared on her face. She doubled over in pain. No, not now. I realized the cursed jade was backfiring. This was my chance, gritting my teeth against the pain. I scrambled to my feet and lunged at Pandora, pressing my hands against her temples. I channeled every last shred of white light within me into her. Erg. Pandora let out an inhuman shriek, her entire body convulsing violently. Green and white light clashed within her, and the cracks across her skin multiplied. Let go. She struggled desperately. You'll kill us both. No, I'm saving you. I gritted my teeth and held on, the white light continuing to pour out. Pandora, remember when you had a fever as a child and Grandma stayed by your bedside all night. Remember when you made your first dress and Mom praised your skill. Remember the lipstick Dad secretly bought you. Pandora's struggle weakened, and the green light in her eyes flickered uncertainly. They all love you, but you're too fixated on comparison to see the happiness you already have. My voice choked. In this life, I wanted to get along with you. Pandora let out a heart-wrenching scream, and a blinding green light erupted from within her, flinging me away violently. I slammed into the wall, my vision went black, and I nearly passed out. Through blurred vision, I saw Pandora kneeling on the ground, pieces of green fragments being expelled from her body, the remnants of the fake Jade Pendant. With each piece expelled, she grew weaker until she collapsed, reverting to her true form. The surrounding villagers fell one after another, a sinister aura seeping from their bodies. Ethan rushed to my side and helped me up. Evelina, are you all right? I'm fine, I said weakly, gesturing toward Pandora. Check on her. Pandora lay on the ground, her breathing faint. Her skin was covered in a web of fine cracks, like a porcelain doll on the verge of shattering. I crawled to her side and found she was still conscious. Why save me? She asked, her voice a faint whisper. Because you're my sister, I said softly, taking her hand. In this life, I still choose to forgive. 2 streams of tears flowed from Pandora's eyes, sliding down her cracked cheeks. I'm sorry. Just then, the distant roar of a helicopter could be heard. Ethan's face changed. The military has arrived in full force. Evelina, we must leave immediately. According to regulations, all those involved in supernatural incidents are to be taken back for research. What about Pandora? Ethan shook his head gravely. In her condition, I'm afraid she'll be dealt with on the spot. Looking at the dying Pandora, I made my decision. We're taking her with us. What? She's my sister, I said firmly. I will heal her. Ethan and I exchanged glances for a moment, then he finally nodded. Okay, but we have to move immediately. He hoisted Pandora onto his back, and I followed closely behind as the 3 of us ran toward the deep mountains behind the village. Behind us, the searchlight from the helicopter had already swept over the center of the village, and the military's voice came through the loudspeaker. Everyone stay where you are. Repeat, everyone stay where you are. We plunged into the dense forest, temporarily evading our pursuers, but Pandora's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Her breathing was almost non-existent, and the cracks on her body began to ooze blood. She won't last much longer, Ethan said after checking her. We need to treat her immediately. I held Pandora's hand and channeled the last of the white light within me into her. The cracks stopped spreading, but showed no signs of healing. Not enough, I gasped. I need more power. Ethan suddenly remembered something and pulled an amulet from under his collar. Try this, it's a family heirloom, said to have healing properties. The amulet was an ancient-looking copper coin, engraved with strange runes. As soon as I placed it on Pandora's chest, the coin emitted a faint golden glow. Pandora's cracks began to slowly heal, and her breathing stabilized a bit. It works, I exclaimed in delight. Ethan, however, looked grave. But this can only stabilize her temporarily. To fully heal her, we need a more powerful cleansing force. I gazed deeper into the mountains, and a thought suddenly struck me. I know where to go. Grandma's grave. The power of the true Jade Pendant originates there. Perhaps. We had no choice. We set off for Grandma's grave under cover of night. Pandora's life, the safety of the villagers, and the future for Ethan and me, all hinged on this last hope. 20. The mountain path gleamed pale under the moonlight. Ethan carried the dying Pandora on his back, and I followed closely behind, as the 3 of us struggled through the dense forest. Indiana, the distance behind us, the military's searchlights occasionally swept across the treetops, accompanied by the intermittent barks of dogs and the static of radio transmissions. How much further? Ethan whispered, his military uniform soaked with sweat. Almost there, I gasped, pointing to the halfway up the mountain, just beyond that pine forest. Pandora let out a faint moan on Ethan's back, and the cracks in her skin began to ooze blood again. The light from the copper coin amulet was fading, and we had to reach Grandma's grave as quickly as possible. Pushing through the last thicket, the view suddenly opened up before me. Grandma's grave remained open, the coffin lid askew, looking especially desolate in the moonlight. I jumped down into the grave to examine Grandma's remains carefully. In my haste last time, I hadn't noticed. Now I saw that the way her hands were folded seemed odd, as if deliberately pointing to a specific spot on the coffin. "Ethan, give me a hand." I gently moved Grandma's arm aside and pointed at the coffin's floorboard. "Something's off here." Ethan jumped down to help. Together, we shifted the floorboard aside, revealing the soil layer beneath. We hadn't dug more than a foot when my fingertips suddenly struck something hard, a bluestone slab covered in carved inscriptions. "This is..." Ethan brushed away the dirt, revealing a recess in the center of the slab. Its shape was a perfect match for the real jade pendant. It suddenly dawned on me. Grandma didn't put the real jade pendant here by accident. I pulled the now lusterless genuine pendant from my bosom and carefully placed it into the groove, a perfect fit. In an instant, the runes on the stone slab lit up one by one, emitting a soft, cyan glow. The entire tomb began to tremble slightly. The earth beneath the coffin slowly sank, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into the darkness, a secret basement. Ethan raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Just who was your grandmother?" I don't know. I was equally stunned. She never mentioned it. Pandora suddenly broke into a violent coughing fit, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. There was no time to hesitate. Ethan hoisted her onto his back again, and with me leading the way holding the glowing stone slab, the three of us descended the stairs. At the end of the stairs lay a circular stone chamber, its walls covered in ancient murals. In the center stood a small altar, upon which rested a book with a bronze cover, identical to the Spirit Spring Codex. "Is this the original Spirit Spring Codex?" I approached the altar. The moment my fingers touched the bronze cover, the entire chamber lit up. The murals on the walls began to flow, narrating an ancient tale. 1,000 years ago, a pair of twin sisters discovered a spirit spring. The elder sister, driven by greed, sought to claim the spring for herself. The younger sister, selfless, wished to share it. In their struggle, the spirit spring was split in two. The elder sister obtained the corrupted, evil spring, while the younger sister guarded the pure one. After their deaths, their powers were sealed within 2 jade pendants, to be watched over by their descendants for generations. "So the spirit spring and the evil jade are of the same origin," I murmured. "Is Grandma the guardian of this generation?" Ethan placed Pandora beside the altar. "The murals say that only a pure heart can harness the power of the spirit spring, Evelina. Perhaps you can save her." I knelt beside Pandora and held her cold hand. The cracks on her skin had spread all over her body, making her look like a porcelain doll that would shatter at a touch. "How can we save her? The spirit spring space has already vanished." The bronze codex suddenly opened by itself, stopping on a specific page. It depicted one person placing a hand on another's chest, with 2 jade pendants floating between them. "You must merge your powers," Ethan interpreted. "Use the true jade pendant to guide the malevolent jade energy within her and transform it into spiritual energy." I took a deep breath, placing the genuine jade pendant on Pandora's chest while pressing my other hand against her forehead. Closing my eyes, I focused on the faint, lingering warmth within me, slowly guiding it down my arm and into Pandora's body. At first, nothing happened. Suddenly, Pandora's entire body convulsed violently. A surge of green light erupted from within her, clashing fiercely with the white radiance of the jade pendant. "Hold on." Ethan pressed his hand on my shoulder. "She's resisting." I clenched my teeth and continued to channel energy. Memories of Pandora flooded my mind. How she had shielded me from our father's stick as a child, secretly shared half her candy with me, and mended my torn clothes. "Sis, come back." I choked out. "I forgive you. I've always forgiven you," as if responding to my call. The green light within Pandora began to fade, gradually merging into the white light. The real jade pendant grew hotter and hotter, finally cracking in half with a crack, sending a powerful energy wave that knocked both Ethan and me to the ground. The stone chamber shook violently, and the murals on the walls began to peel off. Ethan grabbed me and pulled me up. "It's collapsing. We need to go." But Pandora, beside the altar, Pandora slowly sat up. The cracks on her body were healing at a visible rate. The green light in her eyes had completely vanished, and her pupils had returned to their original brown color. "Evelina," she called out weakly, her voice carrying a warmth that had been long absent. I rushed over and hugged her. "Let's go." The 3 of them stumbled up the stairs, barely making it out of the tomb before the stairs behind them collapsed with a loud crash. Grandma's coffin also sank underground, and the tomb automatically closed, returning to its original state as if nothing had happened. The east was already lightening, and a new day was about to begin. Pandora, weak but conscious, leaned against my shoulder, tears silently falling. Why did you save me? I gently wiped away her tears. Because you're my sister. The village at the foot of the mountain slowly stirred to life. As the power of the cursed jade faded, the controlled villagers returned to normal. The military helicopters were still circling, but the search had been called off. Ethan's communicator suddenly rang. After answering, his expression relaxed from tension. The higher-ups have ordered the operation to cease. All anomalies have disappeared. He looked at Pandora. Your arrest warrant has been revoked. The military now believes you are a victim, not the mastermind. Pandora lowered her head. I did commit so many wrongs. There's a chance to make amends. Ethan patted her shoulder. For now, let's find a safe place for you to rest. 3 months later, the village returned to peace. Pandora's health had mostly recovered, though faint marks remained on her skin, serving as a reminder. She took the initiative to apologize to the entire village and used her savings to compensate the affected villagers. Ethan and I got married in the spring, simple yet warm. The whole village came to offer their blessings. The most unexpected surprise was when Pandora sent a hand-embroidered wedding canopy featuring entwined mandarin ducks and twin lotus flowers. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, looking down. I just want you to know that I've changed. I took the canopy and gave her a hug. We will never have the closeness of ordinary sisters, but at least the chains of hatred have been broken. After marriage, Ethan and I started an ecological farm in the village, using ancient farming methods recorded in the Lingquan Miji, without chemical fertilizers or pesticides. Yet our crops thrived. The farm quickly became a model for the entire county, and even provincial leaders came to visit and inspect. Pandora moved to the county town and found work at a clothing factory, I heard. She's very skilled and has been promoted to team leader. Every holiday, she sends gifts, sometimes a piece of clothing, sometimes a pair of handmade shoes. As for the spiritual spring space, it has indeed disappeared forever. Interestingly, whenever I focus on cultivating crops, a warm glow occasionally flickers at my fingertips, making the plants grow exceptionally well. Ethan said, that is the light within me, more precious than any external force. We renovated Grandma's grave and planted her favorite gardenias. Sometimes in the early morning, I pass by and see dewdrops on the petals, resembling the droplets of a spiritual spring. Standing on the high ground of the farm, gazing at the lush fields and the distant rolling hills, I held Ethan's hand tightly. In this lifetime, we have finally grasped happiness, and that Evelina, once filled with hatred, has become a thing of the past, just like the spirit spring space. The end. Story 2. After finally having a baby boy, my sister-in-law decided to throw a lavish banquet. I saw my nephew's vengeful spirit haunting her and urged her to cancel the celebration. Thinking I was shaming her, she strangled me to death in the middle of the night. After being reborn, I stopped trying to talk her out of holding the feast. At the final fertility banquet, each extra table set would shorten the child's lifespan by a year. My nephew carries the weight of 3 lost lives. His brow shows darkening signs, his fortune fading fast. My sister-in-law terminated 3 female pregnancies in her desperate quest for a son. Unless my sister-in-law accumulates good karma through virtuous deeds, my nephew won't live to see adulthood. In my past life, I advised my sister-in-law against holding the womb-sealing banquet. Such an act would only further disturb the restless spirits of the 3 sisters who died in her womb, yet she took it as a public humiliation. Believing I was shaming her for being unworthy of celebration, in the dead of night, they stormed into my room, strangled me until I had a fatal heart attack. The moment I opened my eyes, I found myself back on the day my sister-in-law was preparing her last baby celebration. My sister-in-law was cradling my chubby-cheeked nephew, clowning around and making the whole family roar with laughter. I swallowed my rage, forced a smile, and played along with her antics. I don't want anyone to notice that something's off with me. There was a faint bruise on my nephew's face, remembering how my sister-in-law bared her teeth like she wanted to strangle me. I decided not to meddle this time, let her reap what she sows. When my sister-in-law saw me laughing along with her, her face lit up with even more smug satisfaction. I used to think my sister-in-law looked down on us because she always seemed unhappy around our Felix. She glanced around casually while playing with her nephew's hand, speaking as if it were no big deal. She's a college graduate after all, always looking down her nose at everyone. But what's the point of a girl studying so much? She'll just end up married into another family, staying at her parents' home all the time. What kind of life is that? I've taken up my grandmother's mantle, offering fortune-telling services online and making a decent income through social media. My sisters-in-law have no idea about this. They're worried I might stake a claim to our parents' inheritance. They keep setting me up with all sorts of questionable blind dates, trying to marry me off as soon as possible. I replied with a smile. Sis, if it comes to it, I'd be fine with moving out. Last time my kindness was thrown back in my face. This time I don't want any more contact with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law quickly chuckled in response. It's not that we're forcing you out, but the house is just too cramped to fit everyone comfortably. In my past life, I was fooled by my sister-in-law's tone, thinking she truly had no other choice. I even kindly reminded her not to bring Misfortune upon the child. When my parents heard I was moving out, they exchanged uneasy glances. Right after my brother and his wife got married, my parents started hinting, both directly and indirectly, that I should stop coming home. I only managed to secure my right to live at home by handing over a hefty sum for household expenses every month. They secretly set aside that money to subsidize my brother and his wife. But I turned a blind eye to it. If I moved out, how would they ever get the chance to keep finding new ways to ask me for money? Mom quickly tried to smooth things over between my sister-in-law and me. We're family. Why are you talking like we're strangers? It's not like we don't have room for you to stay. Honestly, in my past life, I always helped out financially because I knew how hard my parents worked to make ends meet. But when my sister-in-law was choking me and I screamed before dying, they lived right next door and didn't even come to stop her. They just let her take her anger out on me, even if they didn't mean to drive me to despair. My heart has already grown cold, seeing that our parents didn't want me to move out. My sister-in-law stood in silent frustration again. She had no idea I was actually well off, thinking of me as nothing but a freeloader taking up space. My sister-in-law still wanted to argue with me a bit more. I saw my niece curiously poke her little finger at my nephew's face, and I was so angry my eyes widened. Clara, are you asking for trouble? Why are you touching your brother all over? Your hands are filthy. Don't pass your bad luck onto him. My sister-in-law slapped her daughter's hand away with full force. She's even harsher than a stepmother. At first, my sister-in-law wasn't too bad to my niece, but after her third pregnancy also turned out to be a girl, she started finding fault with my niece over everything. My niece often gets beaten black and blue by her, and no amount of pleading from the whole family makes any difference. When my sister-in-law suddenly hit her, my niece's eyes instantly welled up with tears, but she didn't dare cry. You good for nothing. Just finish middle school and go work somewhere. Don't grow up to be an ungrateful wretch, leeching off this family for who knows how many years. The more my sister-in-law made those veiled, cutting remarks, the angrier I got. Why did I even bother giving her advice in a past life? I quietly pulled my niece closer to me. Her dazed expression reminded me so much of myself as a child, when I used to take the blame for my brother. But my sister-in-law wasn't about to let her go. After all the trouble of giving birth to this useless girl, I'm absolutely furious. She doesn't understand anything, always filthy, and still dares to touch her baby brother. Dad thumped his cane on the floor, and my sister-in-law immediately fell silent. Enough, stop all this bickering. You women are ruining what should be a joyous occasion with all this squabbling. Our family finally has an heir, my precious grandson. My sister-in-law has always been a bully who preys on the weak but cowers before the strong. His anger melted into delight, and he beamed as he handed the child to the father. My nephew's face grew even more purple with rage as he watched his wife's vile treatment of their daughter. No one but me can see this bruise. After all, this household holds women in such contempt. Who'd bother discovering my late grandmother's gift for fortune-telling? The more pitiful my niece appears, the thicker the resentment grows around my nephew. As my niece blinked back tears, my nephew let out 2 soft coughs. His sister-in-law was startled by his sudden cough, fearing something terrible might happen to him. His brother quickly turned up the air conditioning. His father patted his back, his mother caressed his face, and his sister-in-law covered her mouth in concern. The whole family was in a flurry of activity. His niece stood alone to the side, feeling like an outsider. The more you coddle your nephew like an emperor, the shorter his life will be. The consequences of favoring sons over daughters are about to catch up. After putting her nephew to sleep, my sister-in-law excitedly announced the good news to the whole family. Mom, Dad, I'm planning to host a closing the womb celebration. It's both a personal milestone and a way to let everyone know our family line is secured. Dad was completely on board. What mattered most to him was carrying on the family line through a son. After 7 or 8 years of marriage without a boy, he'd endured plenty of ridicule from the neighbors. Xingnan practically risked her life to have Felix. She's truly the hero of our family. My brother chimed in with heartfelt agreement. He was thinking they could finally stop all the trying and wouldn't have to endure our parents' pressure about having a baby anymore. Xingnan had 3 miscarriages before finally having Felix. It just breaks my heart thinking about what she went through. My sister-in-law's eyes welled up with tears. After giving birth to this child, she could no longer conceive, and the grievance in her heart had nowhere to go. Thanks to the support from my parents and husband, despite my poor fortune, it took 5 pregnancies to finally have a boy. This time, I'm determined to hold my head high. No matter how much the doctors tried to persuade me during this pregnancy, I stood my ground and insisted on going through with it. Mother gently held my sister-in-law's hand, her expression full of heartache. They had previously subjected my sister-in-law to all sorts of sarcastic remarks and scorn. My mother never missed an opportunity to badmouth my sister-in-law in front of me, calling her a barren hen. She conveniently overlooked the fact that girls are also offspring. I stood by, watching this absurd drama unfold with cold detachment. You'd think the world would end tomorrow if this family didn't produce a male heir. But this family had no royal lineage, let alone immense wealth. The whole family was buzzing with discussions about how to arrange the tables and how many guests to invite for the celebration banquet. We can't possibly skimp on inviting relatives. That alone makes 5 tables, with 3 generations of a single male heir. This calls for a grand occasion. Let's invite the entire clan. Let's add 5 more tables to make it a perfect 10. We should invite more neighbors. Let those who look down on us eat their words. 5 more tables will really liven things up. My sister-in-law was glowing, looking even more radiant than on her wedding day. She's made such a tremendous contribution by giving birth to a boy. Everyone should step aside for her. My sister-in-law scanned the whole family like a triumphant general surveying the troops. Seeing her smug expression, you'd think she'd just won a major battle. No wonder she looked ready to strangle me when I refused to let her throw that baby celebration feast. She must have been my executioner in a past life. How did I fail to see that she's completely unhinged this time? Not only will I not stop her, I'll give her the tools to wreak even more havoc. Sis, let me propose a toast. This last baby celebration absolutely must be done with grandeur and style, to properly honor all you've been through. Too, hearing this, she puffed up with even more pride, determined to make it an extravagant affair that would draw the eyes of every passerby. 15 tables. Each table shaves off a year of life. My nephew, whose life was barely hanging on until 18, is finally blessed with good fortune. My sister-in-law's womb-sealing banquet was held at the city's grandest restaurant. The fanfare was so grand, you'd think my nephew had secured admission to Tsinghua or Peking University straight out of the womb. My sister-in-law looked stunning in her qipao, her figure graceful and elegant. At home, she had her mother help her wrap her postpartum belly tightly with plastic wrap, determined to conceal it. A large banner read, "Congratulations on the birth of your precious son," my sister-in-law said while greeting the guests. Hoping for the perfect pair, my sister-in-law cradled my nephew in her arms, beaming with pride for the whole world to see. My niece stood beside her mother, all dressed up for the very first time. Every guest who passed by couldn't help but compliment her adorable and well-behaved nature. My sister-in-law then gave her niece a hypocritical pat on the head. She smugly avoided any mention of having had an abortion. Heaven has smiled upon me, blessing me with such a lovely son and daughter, a perfect pair. She was so caught up in her own gloating that she failed to notice her nephew's persistently furrowed brow. With every guest who came to celebrate the nephew's birth, the nephew was tormented a little more by the vengeful spirits of his 3 sisters. As the nephew's life force gradually faded, the sister-in-law grew increasingly delighted by the flattery. Just then, 2 of the sister-in-law's former colleagues, who weren't on the guest list, happened to pass by. They stared at the sister-in-law in astonishment. "Xingnan, what's the big occasion at your place? Throwing such a lavish banquet here? Did you really marry into a wealthy family?" The colleague's flattery sent my sister-in-law's vanity soaring. "It's my womb-closing celebration. I've got the perfect pair, 1 boy and 1 girl. No more babies for me. Mission accomplished." The family all call me their hero and insisted on making this a grand affair. My sister-in-law had to leave that company because her body couldn't handle it anymore after multiple miscarriages. Now she's transformed into someone marrying into wealth and privilege. Colleagues peered inside with curiosity. "Shall we go in together to celebrate?" My sister-in-law was grinning from ear to ear. She'd love for everyone to witness her triumphant moment and wouldn't dream of turning them away. "Come on in. Who wouldn't want more blessings?" Her brother pulled her aside. "The seating is all arranged. With your extra guests, our budget was already tight, and now we'd have to add another table." Her sister-in-law rolled her eyes. "What's the big deal? Don't be a spoilsport. Your sister can take Clara off the table to eat later." The niece had been helping greet guests all morning and was already starving. She went to her sister-in-law asking for food, but the woman was busy playing with her son. She didn't even glance her way. My niece stood frozen in place. "Mom, I'm hungry." Only then did my sister-in-law snap out of it. Scanning the crowd to locate me, she absent-mindedly handed a bowl to my niece. "Go find your aunt and help yourself to some food. There's no seat for you here." The niece's eyes welled up with hurt tears. "Mom, I want to stay with Grandma, Grandpa, and you and Dad." My sister-in-law was growing impatient. If there hadn't been guests present, she would have given the girl a good spanking. She wore a smile on her face, afraid that others might notice something amiss, yet her words were merciless. "I told you there's no spot for you, nor for your aunt. Go find her." My brother happened to find me and explained that his wife had let in several uninvited guests, who ended up taking the seats meant for me and my niece. The host should accommodate the guest. We can't just turn them away now that they're here. Be reasonable. I let out a cold, mocking laugh. "So in this whole family, it's just me and your daughter who don't get a seat, is that it?" My brother wasn't as thick-skinned as his wife, but he wasn't much better either. "Are you seriously going to kick our own mother out? I'm out of options here. If you don't want to lose your spot, you'd better get married already." I ignored my brother, took one look at my pitiful niece, grabbed her hand, and walked out of the venue. My niece stared at her father with pleading eyes. My brother hesitated for a moment, caught between his wife and daughter. In the end, she chose to go back to entertaining guests. and let her daughter leave. When someone asked my sister-in-law where her niece had gone, she started grumbling under her breath. That child is so restless, she just ran off to play on her own. Raising a daughter is truly difficult. Nothing ever seems to make her happy. Soon after, the sound of cheerful laughter and conversation filled the air again. After we left the house, my niece started crying and calling for her mom and dad. I ordered her favorite fried chicken, and her tears slowly subsided. As she ate, my niece asked me, "How can I make mom and dad like me?" I gently stroked her head, my eyes brimming with tenderness. Just then, my phone rang. The moment I answered, Mom started yelling through choked sobs, "Where have you been? Your nephew's nose won't stop bleeding and we couldn't find you anywhere." My sister-in-law was weeping her heart out outside the hospital room. She collapsed to her knees, her elegant cheongsam doing little to maintain her composure. How could a perfectly healthy child suddenly have such a severe nosebleed? My mother's face was a mask of displeasure. Seeing her precious grandson in such a state, she immediately laid the blame on my sister-in-law. "This is all because you had to parade the baby around for everyone to see. All that cold air is what made him sick. He's so little. As a mother, you should know better." I rushed over to find the whole family gathered in a circle outside the hospital room. The doctor was examining the baby while my sister-in-law clutched her chest as if struggling to breathe. When Mom spotted me, her anger immediately shifted in my direction. "Whenever there's trouble at home, you're the first to disappear. What good are you anyway?" I couldn't care less. Why is it that I'm only considered family when they need something, but treated like spilled water when everything's fine? I'm just the live-in nanny she gave birth to for my brother. "I took your granddaughter out. The poor thing was practically starving." It seemed to dawn on Mom just then that my niece hadn't been at the banquet. "You're taking Clara. What for?" A girl her age still throwing tantrums to go out. I let out a hollow chuckle. "Well, there weren't enough seats. My sister-in-law told me to take my niece to eat in the hallway." Mom seemed completely caught off guard. "Your sister-in-law actually made you and Clara leave the dinner table. This is just humiliating. What will people think of our family?" My sister-in-law became extremely defensive when I mentioned her making me eat away from the table. Her bloodshot eyes shot daggers at me. "What are you implying?" "I was just asking the child to leave the table. Kids get rowdy and shouldn't be eating with adults in the first place. You're making it sound like I'm starving you." Hearing us argue in the hospital room, Dad snapped at us sharply. "Enough. Must you bring this disgrace to the hospital? This is getting out of hand." The doctors and nurses could now tell what a bizarre, son-preferring family we were. The young nurse couldn't help but roll her eyes amid the argument. The niece got frightened. She couldn't hold back her sobs. In the silence following her father's outburst, her quiet sobs became even more noticeable. My sister-in-law's heart, already troubled by the scolding and worry for her son, grew even more agitated. She slapped her daughter without a second thought. "Stop that crying." My parents, who value face above all, couldn't stand her hitting the child in front of everyone. Mom shoved my sister-in-law hard. "Aren't you embarrassed enough? Why take your mistakes out on the child?" The nurse who'd been rolling her eyes now pursed her lips. I could see the same exasperation in her eyes that I was feeling. The doctor frowned at the noisy hospital ward. The family, who had just been arguing loudly, fell into a collective silence, anxiously awaiting the doctor's words. "Let's run another blood test." "It's still too early to say what's going on." My sister-in-law's face turned pale with fright. "Doctor, what's going on? Is there something seriously wrong with our baby?" The doctor fell silent, lost in thought for a few seconds. "We'll have to wait for the results." My sister-in-law gasped for air, nearly collapsing to the floor. The purplish-black hue on my nephew's face grew increasingly pronounced. He already looked scarcely different from a corpse. The bitter irony was that the one who truly hastened his departure was his own mother. While awaiting the outcome, my sister-in-law regarded her daughter with even greater disdain. She kept pinching and squeezing the soft flesh on her niece's body. "It's all your fault, you worthless burden. You're the reason I can't have children, and you've brought this misfortune upon your brother too." Every tear shed by the niece would become a scythe of death, reaping the life of her nephew. Yet my sister-in-law refused to let it go, determined to take out her anger on her niece. "If you hadn't been so careless as to end up in my womb, I wouldn't have had so many miscarriages. Now my health is ruined, and you've even made my Felix sick. Why do you have to be such a curse on your little brother?" I couldn't take it anymore and pulled my niece behind me to protect her. I was originally just planning to stay out of my sister-in-law's drama, but her attitude made my blood boil. "Sis, why are you hitting the child? She's so young. Do some good deeds for Felix's sake." My sister-in-law looked as if she'd just swallowed a fly when she heard the word virtue. "What nonsense are you spouting? The one who's really ruined Felix's good fortune is Clara. If she hadn't been a jinx on our Felix, how could I have failed to conceive all these years?" Just then, the doctor approached with a grave expression. My sister-in-law quickly wiped the angry flush from her face after our heated argument. His face was etched with worry. The doctor hesitated, words caught in his throat. The hospital room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "Initial Suspicion points to leukemia. What? Mom's getting on in years, and she nearly fainted after getting short of breath. My brother quickly caught her. My sister-in-law's piercing shriek echoed through the entire building. This can't be happening. All the previous tests came back clear. How could it suddenly be leukemia? Let's do another bone marrow biopsy to see what's really going on. My sister-in-law staggered unsteadily, her mind already beginning to unravel. Her eyes burned with a fierce intensity, locked intently on the doctor. You must be mistaken. This hospital is full of liars. Last time you told me I couldn't deliver this baby naturally. That's absolute nonsense. With that, she shoved the doctor forcefully. The entire room was stunned. The doctor stumbled off balance, and to everyone's shock, my sister-in-law moved to strike him again. He kept muttering under his breath, "You're all liars. Every single one of you." Father valued his reputation above all else. How could he tolerate such a disgrace? He grabbed his sister-in-law and slapped her across the face. "Have you lost your mind? You're dragging our family's name through the mud." My sister-in-law was slapped. Her face flushed bright red. "Dad, how could you hit me? They said Felix has leukemia." Father was so furious he could have strangled this disgraceful, hysterical woman. My sister-in-law was terrified by my father's ferocity and turned to my brother for help. My brother just stood by meekly. He's never had any say in this family. Even if his wife were beaten to death by our father, he wouldn't dare utter a word, just like all those times he stood by and watched his own daughter get beaten black and blue. I took my bewildered niece out of the hospital room to find a place to rest. The whole spectacle was both fascinating and tiresome. It's just a dog-eat-dog squabble with the same old tricks. After I'd taken a quick nap, I was woken up again by my sister-in-law's loud crying. "Dad, stop hitting her. Please stop." My father was hitting my sister-in-law with his cane. "You good-for-nothing woman. How can you not even afford the medical bills? When Felix was born, we gave you our entire life savings, and now you're telling me you don't have a single penny." My sister-in-law darted around trying to avoid everyone, her hair in disarray. Her face was a picture of sheer panic. I've already given all the gift money we collected to the hotel. To be honest, we didn't collect much this time, and we still owe the hotel a significant amount." Dad was so furious he could barely catch his breath. "You said you spent all our money on this hotel banquet. Then what happened to our family savings? There was supposed to be a large sum left." My sister-in-law spoke guiltily and cautiously. "I lent all that money to my younger brother. He's getting married soon and needs to buy a house and car. My family's finances are tight, so I lent it to him." Father couldn't believe all the money had been given to her family. He frantically reached for his blood pressure medication while shouting at my sister-in-law, "Hurry up and get that money back." My sister-in-law sobbed uncontrollably, choking out the words between tears. "We already asked for it back ages ago. That money went toward the down payment. Now the place is an abandoned construction site. There's no way we're getting a cent back." Dad's face twitched as he listened. No longer able to contain his rage, he got so worked up his blood pressure spiked and he collapsed right on the spot. I rushed to get a nurse. Thank God we were at the hospital so he could get immediate treatment. Our household is like a bottomless pit. My sister-in-law keeps funneling money to her brother. She was oppressed by her brothers at home, and now she's doing the same to her own daughter after marriage. Thank goodness I broke free from that vicious cycle. My parents' entire life savings were wiped out. Even though my parents played favorites, it still pains me to see this happen. Since childhood, I've always yearned for my parents to treat me a little better. This hope has become second nature to me. While I was busy tending to Dad, I failed to notice Mom's silent, unwavering gaze fixed on me. With Dad still in emergency care, Mom pulled me aside outside the hospital room to plead with me. "Sweetheart, you've got to help your nephew. Your brother and his wife are useless. They can't scrape together the money for his treatment. But you still have some savings, don't you?" The image of my father convulsing is still vivid in my mind as I wipe his face with a towel. Hearing my mother's words, I paused what I was doing. The thought of my sister-in-law rushing into my room to choke me, while my parents did nothing to stop her. I can hardly contain the fury burning inside me. Now Dad needs money, and my nephew needs money too. If my brother and sister-in-law genuinely can't afford it, then they should just sell their house. Why should I be the one carrying the burden of two families all by myself? Mom was taken aback by my tone. "What's happened to you? You were never like this before. You used to be so well behaved. Your brother and sister-in-law have two children to raise. How could they possibly sell their home? And you're a girl. What do you need so much money for anyway? In the end, it'll all just be taken to your husband's family, taken to my husband's family. Ever since I started working, I've handed over so much money to my family and given my brother so much financial support, yet in my mother's eyes, if I don't spend my money, I'll just take it with me to my husband's family anyway. Even if she didn't know my sister-in-law would strangle me, the way she let her take out her anger on me was just heartbreaking. If I didn't contribute a large sum for household expenses, I wouldn't even be allowed back in this house." I looked at my mother, my eyes brimming with tears. "In your eyes, my brother's family are the real family, and I'm just an outsider, right? Then why Come to me for money when it really matters. Well, I'm not giving any, so what? I've given you and Dad plenty of money over the past 2 years, and you've handed it all to my sister-in-law. Go ask her for it. My mother, who was usually timid around my father, suddenly became assertive. No matter what, your nephew's life is in your hands now. You cover the cost first, and I'll make sure your sister-in-law pays you back later. I ignored her and fled the scene as fast as I could. This child's fate is sealed. No amount of money can save them. It's no use. As I was packing up, I sensed something was off. This eerie feeling was just as unsettling as the nightmare I had in my past life. Right before my sister-in-law strangled me to death, I contacted my friends and told them to come to my place as quickly as possible. The spare key is under the doormat. Better safe than sorry. For a bone-chilling cold crept over me in waves. I scanned my surroundings. Not a soul in sight. Why was I so terrified? The moment I opened the door, my mother and sister-in-law returned, silently started recording on my phone. Before I could utter a word, my sister-in-law lunged at me, choking my neck and pinning me to the ground, leaving me completely immobilized. My mother stood by watching. His face was utterly expressionless. My sister-in-law screamed, "Give me the money, hand it over. How can you be so selfish, standing by while my child dies?" My parents probably never knew I had developed a heart condition. Even a healthy person would choke if pinned down like this without warning. I'd been preparing for this, reliving this nightmare every single day since my rebirth, the same suffocating pressure. With practiced ease, I broke free from my sister-in-law's grip. I was caught off guard when another hand shoved me to the ground. I saw the bloodshot veins in my mother's eyes. "Don't let go. Keep holding her down. She's got a heart condition. Scare her enough and she'll hand over the money." All my strength to resist drained away in an instant. So mother knew all along. In my past life, it was deliberate on their part. They didn't fail to hear my cries for help. They chose to be passive accomplices to the slaughter. Last time around, I used financial strain as an excuse to dissuade my sister-in-law from holding the postpartum celebration banquet. My sister-in-law only found out about my substantial savings because she went and made a scene at our parents' place. This wasn't just her venting frustration. It was the whole family ganging up to drive me to the brink. I was screaming my lungs out for help, but not a single family member came to my aid. They knew all along about my heart condition and how easily it could trigger a fatal attack, but it was premeditated. My own parents were the ones who killed me. Despair was evident in my eyes. "Are you killing me for my money?" I desperately asked this question, but all I heard was my own hoarse, rasping voice. My sister-in-law let out a cold, scornful laugh. "If you hand over the money quickly, you won't have to die." But my sister-in-law was the one responding. My eyes remained locked on my mother. My focus was solely on her reaction. Even if my sister-in-law was purely selfish, she was still the mother who gave birth to and raised me. "Mom, are you only after my money?" My words put mother in an awkward position, a flicker of hesitation and compassion crossing her face. But the next moment, it was replaced by ruthless determination. "What nonsense are you spouting, you ungrateful wretch? You only ever think of yourself. If I hadn't kept my wits about me, you'd have taken the money and run by now. A daughter was never meant to stay." My heart plunged into the abyss of despair. No regrets, and no surprises. It took me 2 lifetimes to truly see my family for what they are, coming to terms with the fact that I am completely unloved. Just then, my friend arrived and witnessed the scene at our home. Without a second thought, despite the shock, they immediately jumped into the fray, grappling with my mother and sister-in-law. I finally broke free from their hold, gasping for air as I struggled to catch my breath. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my heart medication and forced it down. Then I grabbed my phone and stopped the recording. What started as a paranoid impulse to record now felt like I'd captured something truly supernatural. My friend was restraining my sister-in-law and mother while calling the police to report the situation. Lying on the ground, I responded to my friend's concerned questions with glazed, unfocused eyes. Ironically, I felt a tinge of relief. At least they didn't hear the hurtful words my mother said to me directly. The pain is almost embarrassing. Gasping for air, my world fell into complete silence. I never imagined the world could be this cruel, for friends had no trouble holding the two of them down amid the chaos. My sister-in-law's phone rang. My brother's voice roared from the other end. "What are you all doing? Where did everyone go?" "I've been here taking care of Dad while Clara went out alone looking for you. She got hit by a car and is in emergency surgery now." "Wait." Felix's heart stopped. "He's bleeding everywhere. What's happening? What's going on? Someone tell me what's happening." Felix, his brother frantically called for help while chaos erupted on the other end of the line. The voices faded abruptly, followed by a loud crash as if the phone had been hurled to the ground. My sister-in-law was completely baffled, desperate to ask what was going on but getting no answers. Her phone slipped from her hand. It was a bolt from the blue. She frantically broke free from my friend and tried to rush to the hospital. "Felix, my Felix, how could his heart stop beating? He was just diagnosed with leukemia. How did this happen? How could this happen?" Just as she rushed toward the door, the police arrived. My sister-in-law's heart instantly sank with panic. She knew that once she was taken to the police station, She wouldn't be able to go to the hospital anymore, God knows where she found the nerve, but she actually tried to make a run for it. As the one who caused the accident, there was no way they'd let her off the hook. Her frenzied state left the police no choice but to handcuff her. Mom was taken aback by my sister-in-law's words. "What did you say?" Felix's heart stopped beating. Tears instantly streamed down her face as she begged the police to let her go. "My grandson is fighting for his life in the hospital. He's just a little boy. Please, officer, let us see him. He's our only heir. If we lose him, this old life of mine isn't worth living anymore," I said to her in a hoarse voice. "Attempted murder. You think we just let that slide?" The officers remained silent as they hauled these two lunatics to the police station. They were screaming hysterically about their nephew's safety. What a shame. They didn't even get to see him one last time. My mind was consumed by my brother's words. My niece had been in a car accident. I collapsed to the ground. "I'm so sorry, I forgot about you." Horrific images of car crash scenarios flashed through my mind. I was gasping for air. Never had I felt so awful. I pressed hard on my chest, trying to calm my racing heart. When I arrived at the hospital, a nurse was watching over my niece's room. My niece was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, like a broken doll. The nurse approached me. "Are you the guardian? Please sign here. No one has come for the child's dressing and procedure." I signed silently and went to pay the fees. As I left, I heard a brother shouting from another ward, "What's wrong with your hospital? A perfectly healthy child just stopped breathing." The doctors stood in a circle, completely at a loss. "We've genuinely never seen a case like this before. It might be a congenital condition." No matter how frantic the brother was, he could only watch helplessly as the child's breathing ceased. He kept calling his sister-in-law and mother on his phone, but couldn't get through to either of them. In the end, his brother sat alone beside his nephew, silently weeping. The child who was once the center of attention now departed all alone. Isn't it heartbreaking? My niece was in the next room, yet no one paid her any attention. Mom and my sister-in-law were only detained for 15 days. They went easy on them because we're family. I'm not going to dwell on this. Instead, they immediately used this case as grounds to cut ties with them. They never got to see their nephew one last time. Such is the cruel irony of fate. From then on, I was free as a bird with no connection to the rest of the Fong family. By the time my sister-in-law and mother were released, my nephew had already been laid to rest. I had already made myself scarce, afraid of getting dragged into trouble again. They're all a bunch of lunatics. At first, Mom simply couldn't accept that her grandson was really gone. What kind of cruel joke is this? How could such a well-behaved child just be gone in the blink of an eye? 5. My brother stood there motionless, letting our mother pound her fists against his chest. Mother seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, yet my sister-in-law remained eerily calm, her hands continuously tracing the surface of our nephew's tombstone. Then one day when I was out, I ran into that former colleague who had attended the banquet. They exchanged a few pleasantries with me. "How old is your child now?" My sister-in-law lunged at her like a rabid dog, going straight for the throat. After that, word spread like wildfire that she'd lost her mind ever since Dad's last episode. The aftereffects have been severe. When he heard his precious grandson had died right after the celebration banquet, the shock left him bedridden for good. My father lay in bed, struggling to sit up, and said with a trembling voice, "Have our son divorced that woman. He should marry someone else." Hearing this, a glimmer of hope instantly lit up my mother's eyes. "You're right. Why didn't I think of that? We should kick that barren hen out of our family." She stormed out immediately to demand her brother divorce his wife, already devastated by the loss of her child. The wife completely snapped upon overhearing her in-law's conversation. All the silence she'd maintained until now erupted in this moment. "I nearly killed myself trying to bear a son for your family. And now you think you can just toss me aside, over my dead body." She grabbed a kitchen knife and attacked her parents, and even her brother who tried to intervene wasn't spared. The entire Fong family was wiped out. My sister-in-law was sentenced to death. I took my niece to visit her mother in prison. She only has 2 days left. We can't let her leave with unanswered questions. My sister-in-law stared at me with an empty expression, as if her soul had departed. "Felix died because he was haunted by the vengeful spirit of his deceased sister. The more you indulge him, the shorter his life will be, especially at the closing the womb banquet. Every extra table of guests celebrating takes another year off Felix's life. But sister-in-law, you can't really blame yourself. After all, Felix was never meant to live past 18. His malevolent aura is just too strong." Hearing this, sister-in-law's eyes nearly burst with rage. She slammed her hand against the glass with force. "What did you say? You're talking nonsense." "Then consider it nonsense, sister-in-law. A life for a life." After saying that, I left with my niece. My niece was quietly eating her ice cream from beginning to end. No one ever cared about her. Fortunately, on the day my sister-in-law lost her mind, she also forgot about my niece's existence. "I will take my niece and leave this place." My niece looked up at me and asked, "Why are Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, and my little brother all gone?" I bent down and gently patted her head. "We must always be good children from now on. If you do bad things, you'll end up like them, taken away to a place far Far away, never to return, my niece trembled and shook her head. Then I'll be a good person. Story 2. In my past life, my best friend and I were transported to a beast world where we were forced to choose beast husbands. She let me pick first, and I chose the frail-looking white wolf from the tribe. My friend then claimed the remaining 3 white wolves. Little did I know, she'd already won the favor of all 4 wolves beforehand. The white wolf resented me for choosing him, so he conspired with my best friend to poison me. I died at the age of 18, given a second chance. I chose the oldest and ugliest white wolf in the tribe, one who couldn't even shapeshift. Let my dear friend enjoy her happily ever after with the 4 beast husbands she handpicked. Mara, you pick first. I don't mind, Jasmine said while clinging to my arm, though her eyes remained locked on the 4 white wolf beastmen. These were beastmen she'd gone through great lengths to charm. Each one perfectly matched her preferences. Having never dated a single handsome guy in the modern world, she wasn't about to let any of these first slip through her fingers now, but she couldn't stop me from choosing a beastman mate. The high priest wouldn't tolerate any fertile female going unclaimed. My finger first pointed at Leo, the man who had betrayed me. His eyes lit up with joy when he looked at me, but I quickly raised my hand and pointed at Kale standing behind him. Kale's face brightened with surprise when I pointed at him, only to cloud over with disappointment moments later. 1. He probably thought I was referring to other orcs in that direction. Certainly not him. The others assumed the same, but I reached out and pulled Kale forward. Would you accept me? Kale blushed as he looked at me. I could, sure. Kale embraced me upon hearing my response. Every orc present wore an expression of utter disbelief. Kale was the oldest and least attractive white wolf in the tribe, lacking even a beast form. No female would ever consider being with him. The high priest glanced at my fair, delicate features before shifting his gaze to Kale, his dark complexion marred by several scars. You'd actually choose him? He's older, unattractive, and doesn't even have a beast form. What could you possibly see in him? Kale flushed with embarrassment. He truly couldn't think of any redeeming qualities. A delicate maiden like me would never normally fancy someone like him. He was overwhelmed by the unexpected attention. He's exactly my type. I want him and only him. The high priest wore a strange expression as he began performing our bonding ceremony. In the White Wolf tribe, chosen mates must complete the bonding ritual on the same day to prevent mate theft. I want him. My best friend turned pale after bonding with 4 white wolves. She completely exhausted her energy. She didn't realize our physiology differs from the females here. After bonding with those 4 white wolves, her body would grow progressively weaker. Only a mate's energy transfer could sustain her. Had she been less greedy and settled for just 2, the consequences wouldn't have been so dire. Forming the bond with Kale left me with no discomfort. Instead, a comforting warmth spread through my body. In my past life, Kale had shown me constant kindness until my death. After I perished, he flew into a berserk rage and slaughtered my best friend's 2 beast husbands, but he was fatally wounded and killed by the other 2 white wolves. In my past life, I actually grew somewhat fond of Kale later on, but it was already too late. Thankfully, it's only just beginning now. My best friend and I had been staying at the clan leader's house, but obviously we couldn't keep living there after getting partners. Kale carried me to the chieftain's place first to gather my belongings. After greeting the chieftain, Kale carried me in one arm and my belongings in the other as we headed back to his dwelling. His place was neat and tidy, quite different from the usual habits of white wolf beastmen. Kale was a beastman the chieftain found years ago. Though he lacks an animal form, his hunting skills are decent enough that the chieftain kept him around. Take a seat first. I'll fix up the sleeping area. Kale settled me on the stone bench and thoughtfully laid out a fur pelt for me. He rebuilt the entire bed using massive bundles of dried grass and stacks of animal hides, creating a sleeping space more than twice its original size. My belongings were sparse, just a few hide skirts, grass sandals, some stone pots, and bone knives. After making the bed, Kale started sewing what looked like clothing. He kept stealing glances at me while working. For me, I walked to the bedside and stood watching him. Kale gathered me in his arms and laid me on the bed. This is for you. Want anything else? I can make it for you. I told Kale what I wanted, and he agreed with a blush. Though currently there's no suitable hide available, he'd need to go hunting. He said that area requires soft animal skins. It's springtime in the Beastmen continent now, when anything you desire comes easily. I fell asleep next to Kale last night, but something heavy seemed to be weighing me down, making me unbearably hot and uncomfortable. I woke up drenched in sweat. Did you cover me with something last night? No. I stared at the neatly folded fur blanket beside me, lost in thought. Kale's restless hands kept fidgeting. I sensed it had something to do with him, but what? Exactly. Kale took me hunting despite his initial refusal. He couldn't bear leaving me alone, so in the end, he brought me along. I tagged after Kale, happily dragging the little cart I'd hidden in the woods. This was freshly made and hadn't been used yet. I was determined to bring back everything I wanted this time. While Kale was hunting, I was gathering. When Kale was dressing the game, I kept foraging, and when he bagged a deer, I was still digging away. By the time Kale had caught a dozen game Animals. I was still elbow-deep in my digging. Kale hauled the sled while I pushed the cart, swapping to a large net as we approached the tribal settlement. Kale lived in a remote spot, so we barely encountered anyone along the way. We worked all day. Kale was busy making jerky while I prepared spices, with all sorts of things drying in front of our door that evening. Kale tailored clothes for me. He measured me with quick gestures, and in no time, that triangular piece of fabric became a proper garment in his hands. Kale made several pieces in a row, finally giving my drafty little fur skirt some much-needed coverage and security. Since my arrival, Kale hasn't touched raw food. With my seasonings, his appetite's grown remarkably. He hunted so many animals that we dried enough jerky to fill several baskets. With the house overflowing with belongings, he carved out a separate storage room right next door. When I next saw my best friend, she was merrily surrounded by her 4 beast husbands. This was a major hunting expedition. Nearly the entire White Wolf tribe's elite force participated, with some mobile females and cubs following behind. Perched on Kale's shoulders while pulling the cart, I became the center of curious stares. Several females asked how I built this contraption. After my explanations, they were eager to try making their own. When Kale and other beastmen went hunting large herbivores, he entrusted me to the chieftain's wife. The chieftain's family are incredibly kind folks with a habit of taking in strays too. First they adopted Kale, then me and my bestie. Even there, 2 kids were foundlings. The chieftain's wife Luna, who looked barely 30, took me and a bunch of cubs berry picking. These berries keep well with their sweet tart flavor, beloved by all beast folk. My bestie arrived still clinging to one of her beastkin husbands. Jasmine, stay with the chieftain's wife and don't wander off. We'll come back for you when we're done. The other 3 beastmen stood aside as Leo gave me an unreadable glance. Be careful out there. Jasmine came bouncing toward me, but when she reached for my arm, I sidestepped her. Jasmine, these are your favorite berries. Pick plenty to take home. I preempted her before she could speak. She obviously expected me to gather them for her. I'd always pampered her before. A spoiled princess like her would never stoop to such chores. I was naive back then, but I'm not playing the fool anymore. My cart is filled with small baskets for sorting items. One basket was already packed with berries I'd gathered when some women, who'd shown interest in my cart earlier, asked if they could add theirs. I agreed. I collected so many things while trailing the group that my little cart became completely stuffed. On our way back, everyone carried their own belongings and invited me to their homes, which I gladly accepted. Building good relationships with the females in the tribe will pay off later. The tribe hunted so many large game this time that we won't need to go out for quite a while. Jasmine turned pale as she stared at the few remaining berries in her shoddily made little basket. I didn't even give her a chance to speak, just grabbed Kale, took our share of the goods, and made a quick exit. Jasmine's 4 beast husbands didn't notice what she had gathered, thinking nothing of it as they comforted her. Leo watched my retreating figure with a fleeting loneliness in his eyes. Jasmine's beast husbands traded hunted meat with other females for berries, game that came easily to them. Jasmine happily munched on the berries, while only Leo watched her with an unreadable glint in his gaze. Kale and I made a huge pot of stew, shared half with the orcs living nearby, and successfully warmed up our relationship with them. When Jasmine found out, she started figuring out how to cook too, determined to outdo me. But come on, Jasmine's a spoiled rich girl. All she knows is spending money, chasing men, and asking for handouts. Since when does she do things like this? The only thing she's good at is coming to me for help, but this time I came prepared. Mara, got any seasonings left? I can't stand this bland taste anymore. I heard you told others you'd cook yourself. They even claimed you said my cooking wasn't good enough. No way. We're besties. Your cooking's way better than mine. I should know. I've tasted it. They're just spreading rumors because they're jealous of our friendship. Do you have any more? I pulled out a large bundle, slightly moldy leftovers from my cooking, though this pampered young lady probably wouldn't notice. I walked back to the stone bench, ignoring the mixed expressions in the room. Jasmine was about to get her comeuppance this time. These were the orcs she'd promised to cook for personally, from start to finish, as she'd so emphatically claimed. Now she comes asking for my spices while saying these things. Isn't that just being two-faced? After I sat down, the orcs clearly weren't reaching for food as eagerly as before, each clearly preoccupied with their own thoughts. I saw through it but kept quiet. Kale and I kept eating. I'd really splurged on this meal, and it'd be a shame to waste such good ingredients. Jasmine took the chance while Kale and I were out hunting to serve the other orcs, but even with my spices, her cooking clearly couldn't match mine. Just as she boasted her cooking is way better than mine, the orcs present wore strange expressions, not the reaction Jasmine had hoped for. What's wrong? Didnt. Everyone, I made this specially, even sun-dried the seasonings myself. The orcs picked at their food half-heartedly before making excuses to leave. I'd given them those spices too. Honestly, their own cooking tasted better later. Every single one of them came down with diarrhea. That moldy aftertaste they'd noticed turned out to be spot on. She was given the seasoning, yet somehow managed to spoil it and still serve the dish. What kind of malice is that? Jasmine remains oblivious to the shift in people's perception of her, while she herself Suffered no ill effects from eating it, of course she's fine. A stomach trained by corporate food additives does have slightly more resilience than an orc's in certain aspects. I never went looking for trouble with Jasmine, yet she keeps showing up at my place, but I came prepared. I always leave witnesses behind. Everyone in the she-cat circle saw and heard everything clearly, with Jasmine being the only one absent. Now my witness lineup is complete, isn't it? Once I have the she-cats, they're beast. Husbands will naturally side with me too. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Kale lay silently on the bed without saying a word, but he's never this quiet normally. What's up with him today? The moment I touched him, his skin was burning hot enough to cook on. I called over a nearby male, who looked at me strangely several times, clearly wanting to say something but hesitating. Speak up, what's wrong with him? Didn't you too? Do what you're supposed to do. The shy male couldn't bring himself to say it outright. What do you mean? He's in heat and should have mated with you long ago. The fever's from holding back this whole time. The male scurried away. He had no desire to get beaten by Kale, even without shifting into beast form. Kale's strength was unmatched. Kale led me back by the hand, my palm slick with sweat from the unbearable heat. My pulse raced as the mating mark on my neck burned faintly. Since when do bonds react to a partner's rut? Kale held me in bed until I started sweating too. Could we use the river to cool down? Kale's breathing grew heavier at those words. Do you hate this? It's boiling. Maybe you should scoot over. But we're partners. Kale pouted, feeling wronged after going this far only to be pushed away. Need to blow off some steam. My hands began wandering. Wait, are you absolutely sure about this? You said it yourself. We're partners. Kale let me fumble around, but he was just as clueless as I was. Blushing, Kale pulled out an animal hide and began studying it intently in front of me. I didn't fall asleep until dawn, when the contract mark finally stopped burning. Jasmine rarely visits me lately, her body's weakening, and though she senses something's wrong, she can't resist it. Without coupling with her beast husbands and draining their energy, her body deteriorates rapidly. They were eager at first, but now show subtle resistance. Leo's the worst offender, always slacking off now. Though he used to be the most eager to please her before the bonding ritual, Jasmine can only sustain her physical form by drawing power from them through intimate connections. Whispers about Jasmine's incompetence have spread like wildfire through the White Wolf tribe. Everyone knows she's utterly useless. She can't even be bothered to pick berries, leaving all cooking and chores to her beastmen husbands. Whenever Leo wants to show off something he made, he comes running to me for it, never missing a chance to badmouth other beastmen. With the rainy season approaching, Kale wanted to hunt more game. Though we had plenty of food, it never hurts to be extra prepared. Perched on Kale's shoulder, I felt his large, callous fingers pressing and stroking my thigh, making my face flush. He never used to be like this, always so still before. Now he's learned some bad habits. My cart was already packed with several young deer, all cleaned thoroughly with barely any scent of blood. Kale wanted to gather more supplies, so we ventured deeper into the forest. Out of nowhere, several feral beastmen surrounded us, all shifting into their animal forms. This little female looks mighty fine. Why don't you be our woman? That soft skin looks real tempting. I shrank back and hid behind Kale. Females captured by rogue orcs suffer terribly, forced by multiple males and treated as breeding stock. Kale patted my hand. When the moment comes, run for it. Don't worry about me. I'll go get help for you, Mara. Promise me you won't form a life bond with anyone else if I die. Okay. I burst into tears immediately, and Kale frantically tried to wipe them away. You're not going to die. Don't you dare die. The rogue beastmen watched us, their faces twisting into malicious grins. Listen here, little female, behave yourself. There's more of us than you see. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The rogue beastmen lurking in the shadows stepped forward, at least a dozen of them. Kale engaged them in combat. I tried to run, but one of the beastmen pinned me against a tree, his hand around my throat as he leaned in with what looked like intent to lick me. I turned my head away, but instead of that sticky sensation, only warm droplets scattered across my body. The metallic tang of blood filled my nostrils. My eyelids fluttered weakly as I struggled to open them. Mara, keep your eyes closed. It'll be over soon. Kale's voice reached me through the darkness, with my eyes shut tight. Only screams and howling wind remained in my ears. What's happening? Something just grabbed me, firm yet warm. Could these be claws? Against my better judgment, I opened my eyes and locked gazes with the colossal creature before me. Holy, that's one gorgeous beast. It was a white fox. Couldn't tell how many tails it had, but each was breathtaking as they swayed rhythmically. It set me down and nudged me forward. A small creek lay before me, looking down at my blood-stained body. I immediately jumped into the creek to wash off. The white fox beside me watched with an odd expression. Are you Kale? 3. The white fox nuzzled against me in silence. After my bath, he dried me off completely. After a long exchange with it, I reached a conclusion. Kale can't revert from his beast form or speak right now. He's lost control. I had no choice but to follow him and take shelter in a cave for the time being. Thankfully, Kale's warmth kept me cozy, and I slept soundly through the night. When I woke at dawn, Kale was gulping down a fawn in one bite. He froze mid-swallow upon noticing me. He then turned away to Devour the remaining fawns. Several fresh kills lay scattered on the grass nearby. With careful claws, he carved up the tenderest cuts for me before consuming the rest, hide, entrails and all. He even licked his lips clean after finishing the meal. As I carried the meat to wash it, Kale followed me and kept snacking along the way. How does he not get stuffed? We camped outside for several days. But fortunately Kale quickly mastered controlling this power. When he regained human form, all the scars on his face vanished. He'd become quite handsome. On our way back, Kale pounced on anything living to devour it. Maybe we should wait until you're full before heading back. Then I watched Kale hunt down a mountain of prey, and he ate every last bit. I don't usually eat this much. It's just my first time in beast form. My transformation needs extra nourishment. Is he worried I'd think he eats too much? I absolutely adore his beast form. That gorgeous white fox is just adorable. Nobody noticed anything amiss when we returned. It's perfectly normal for beast folk to stay out overnight. Lately Leo's been using Jasmine as an excuse to come get things from me, and he always ends up lingering around for about an hour. He keeps trying to strike up conversations with me, and I only respond when I can't avoid it. Every time I visit Jasmine, I'd hear strange noises and have to wait until they're done before seeing her. Pale as a ghost, she lay atop her beast husband. By now she must have realized this was from overusing the bonding ritual. Then why doesn't she dissolve the pact? Jasmine refuses to abandon any of her beast husbands. As long as they keep feeding her power, she survives. Why would she discard them? She never expected Leo would be the one to initiate the bond dissolution. When the high priest saw her condition, he asked the others if they wished to sever their bonds with her. In the end, only Leo chose to break the covenant with her, yet Jasmine's health showed no signs of improvement. If anything, it deteriorated further. Leo keeps hitting on me. I've made it crystal clear I'm not interested, but he still won't stop harassing me. Kale beats him up every time they cross paths. 2 weeks later, Jasmine got pregnant, but the high priest said her body couldn't handle childbirth and recommended an abortion. But Jasmine knew she wasn't an orc. Having an abortion under these circumstances would kill her. She could only beg her beastly husband to grant her more strength. A month passed like this before Jasmine came stumbling to me in distress. Mara, save me. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so vain. I shouldn't have lied. Please save me. I was completely baffled. I hadn't even started dealing with her yet. Why did she suddenly look so much older? Leo followed her to stand before me. Mara, I know you've returned too. Look, this woman is dying. Won't you forgive me? Kale wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. Do I not exist? Mara is mine. Leo's eyes turned red. Mara, don't use him to provoke me. Leave him. Let's renew our bond. I swear I didn't miss any of their conversation. So how did they suddenly start fighting? It was Kale's first time revealing his beast form in front of others. The white wolf stood no chance against the white fox. In his final moments before reverting to human form, Leo swiped his paw and killed Jasmine as she tried to flee. The tribe banished him for the murder. Not long after, while hunting with the main tribe, I came across Leo's corpse. The wounds, they looked suspiciously like Kale's handiwork. The White Fox tribe came to negotiate when they heard about a white fox living with the White Wolf tribe, demanding to take Kale away. When they tried to take Kale, he showed no intention of leaving the White Wolf tribe. He just took me to stay with the White Fox tribe for a few days afterward. When winter arrived, Kale kept dragging me into intimate moments whenever he had the chance. Before winter even fully passed, I found out I was pregnant. When spring blossoms painted the land, I gave birth to 3 white fox cubs. They only wanted cuddles with me and always avoided Kale, so when they grew strong enough, Kale dumped them at the Arctic fox tribe. The 3 little foxes gazed at me with watery eyes. I didn't want to leave, but Kale just threw me over his shoulder and ran. Within a few years, they were smiling at their baby siblings who just entered the world. Same beast of a father. Same cruel fate. They barely had any time with me either. Silence. Story 2. I felt like I had just woken from a long nightmare where I was swimming in lava, and then suddenly the water turned icy cold, nearly freezing me. Suddenly, the water receded, and I gasped for air. I woke up with a start, surrounded by darkness, unable to see anything, but I felt the soft touch beneath me. It was a bed. This wasn't the cramped and crowded refugee camp of the post-apocalyptic safe zone. This was my home before the apocalypse. I quickly reached for my cell phone on the nightstand, turned on the screen, and the date glaring back at me was March 14th, 2324, at 2:55 a.m. I had been reborn 3 months before the apocalypse because my birthday is June 14th, and I clearly remember that it was on that day that the super typhoon Tessa triggered the apocalypse. Although the government had issued warnings before the typhoon, the duration and severity of the disaster far exceeded everyone's expectations. The persistent storm and torrential rains that lasted half a month destroyed most buildings and completely paralyzed the water, power, and road transportation systems. When the tsunami hit, ferocious waves nearly instantly submerged 10-story buildings. Many people perished in this disaster, and the survivors who were left helplessly awaited government aid that came too late. What followed were conflicts over resources driven by cold, illness, and violence. Subsequently, 2 years of extreme cold followed by extreme heat ensued, revealing the darkest aspects of human nature in these harsh conditions. My parents died in the first year of the apocalypse because they couldn't get enough to eat and succumbed to a cold due to their weakened immune systems. My boyfriend Easton disappeared after being pushed into the water while searching for supplies with others from our community. This time, since I have 3 months to prepare, I am determined to amass enough supplies to protect them and keep them safe from any danger. Now at 3 a.m., I start to record and organize the critical timelines from my past life on paper to prepare survival supplies tailored to different post-apocalyptic scenarios. The apocalypse had signs. Spring passed, but the temperature did not rise. In May it even dropped to minus 20 or 30 degrees, followed by super typhoons and heavy rains in June that lasted half a month, then tsunamis and heavy snow in July, with temperatures dropping to minus 50 degrees. Firstly, I need to consider our living situation. My parents currently live in an old neighborhood that is more than a decade old, which is neither cold-proof nor waterproof. I am now living in a newly renovated apartment, intended as a marriage home, a 300-square-meter duplex on the 21st floor, 1 apartment per elevator. A little remodeling to bring my parents and boyfriend over should do the trick. In terms of food, I listed everything from essential grains and oils to fruits and snacks on 2 full pages of A4 paper. After roughly organizing my thoughts, I quickly called my parents and boyfriend, urging them to come over as I had something important to discuss. Convincing my parents and boyfriend was surprisingly straightforward, having been dearly loved by my parents from a young age. Once I detailed everything I had experienced in my past life, they held me and cried for a long time, deeply moved by my story. All 3 expressed their belief in me and agreed with all my decisions. Wiping the tears from my face, I took out the organized content. Before assigning tasks, I first needed to check the available funds. We liquidated everything we could, and ultimately gathered $15 million in cash. With everything ready, it was time to get to work. The apartment features a lofty ceiling of 7 meters and includes a spacious 50-square-meter open-air balcony. We've decided to keep 2 bedrooms and 1 kitchen and bathroom each, while opening up the rest of the space as much as possible. We've customized numerous shelves to store supplies, which helps save on storage space. The entrance door is equipped with a top-grade smart security lock, but I feel that's not enough, so I plan to add an additional stainless steel door for extra security. In our high-rise complex, each apartment is accessed directly from the elevator with individual card access. The elevator opens up to an area of about 10 square meters before reaching the entrance door, directly opposite the door to the fire escape. For added security, we've custom made 2 more stainless steel doors, intending to install them in front of the fire escape and near the elevator. However, to avoid drawing the property management's attention, we've decided to wait until just before any potential apocalypse to install them. These doors are meant to guard not against natural disasters, but against the potentially fearful nature of people in such times. Considering the possibility of water and power outages, we've reserved space on the balcony for water storage tanks and solar panels, and have insulated and explosion-proofed these installations. The remaining balcony space has been enclosed. We've also installed a water purification system to treat rainwater for domestic use. During the renovation, we installed underfloor heating throughout the house. I also had a large fireplace installed in the living room, and upgraded every room with the best air conditioning units available. This pretty much sums up the home renovation plan. We've confirmed the schedule, and my father is handling the details and supervision. Next, we moved on to purchasing survival supplies. I rented a vacant factory nearby, which I heard was previously a logistics distribution center. This way, we can store the purchased supplies there temporarily before gradually transporting them home in batches. With my family, my mother, and I went to the wholesale market. I was in charge of purchasing clothing and utilities, while she handled the food and drinks. We bought 200 barrels of bottled water, 300 cases of mineral water, 5 cases each of Coke and Sprite, 10 cases of functional drinks, 20 cases of milk, and 2 cases each of instant milk tea and coffee. We acquired 120 kilograms bags of vacuum-sealed rice, 30-20 kilograms bags of flour, 10 boxes each of noodles and rice noodles, 50-10 kilograms buckets each of soybean oil, corn oil, and peanut oil, 10 boxes each of various flavors of instant noodles and cup noodles, 10 boxes of hot and sour glass noodles instant soup, 20 boxes of various flavored instant hot pots, and 20 boxes of self-heating rice, 10 boxes of compressed biscuits, and 10 boxes of various vacuum-sealed pastries, 5 boxes each of fish, meat, and fruit canned goods, 50 kilograms each of dried bamboo shoots, dried bean curd sticks, dried seaweed, and other dried vegetables, and 50 kilograms of dried bananas, dried strawberries, and other dried fruits. We got 5 boxes of salt, and 1 box each of white sugar, soy sauce, vinegar, and other seasonings, and 1 box of various Spices, 50 packets of hot pot base and 20 packets of various sauces, a box each of nuts and chocolates, 20 vacuum-packed marinated chickens and ducks, and 20 kilograms each of air-dried sausages and cured meats, 10 frozen chickens and ducks, 20 frozen fish, 20 kilograms of frozen shrimp, and 100 kilograms each of frozen pork, beef, and 50 kilograms of lamb, 10 bags each of various flavored frozen dumplings, 50 bags of pan-fried bread, 50 kilograms of hot pot meatballs, and 50 bags of half-fried snacks, 200 each of chicken and duck eggs, 50 kilograms each of easily storable potatoes, sweet potatoes, and Chinese cabbages. I first ordered 2 high-cost performance large freezers in the electronics section, although there will be 2 years of extreme cold during the apocalypse. Maintaining a livable indoor temperature requires the use of freezers and refrigerators to preserve some food items. By the 3rd year, when extreme heat begins in our food supplies have decreased to a certain extent, the space in the freezers can be used to store ice. Then, I headed straight for the outdoor camping section. I bought 3 induction cookers, 5 cassette stoves for outdoor camping, and 10 boxes of cassette gas specifically for the stoves, 10 alcohol stoves, 10 boxes of alcohol blocks, and 20 boxes of solid fuel, 2 small barbecue stoves and 20 boxes of smokeless charcoal. Based on our family of 4's height and weight, we selected what the owner claimed to be expedition-grade cold weather gear, suitable for mountain expeditions. Everyone has 2 sets. We've also prepared 5 sets of diving suits and other equipment, 1 set per person with 1 extra set as a spare. Windproof and waterproof suits, sweat-wicking shirts, and waterproof hiking boots were also picked up in 2 sets for each of our 4 sizes, 5 top-quality sleeping bags and 2 tents, 5 boxes of hand warmers, 5 electric heaters, and 5 electric blankets, 2 inflatable rafts, 10 life jackets, 10 life buoys, and 5 solar chargers. In this apocalyptic scenario, I can't guarantee that all plans will be flawless, but I must prepare for the inevitable need to venture outside. I went to the hardware store again and bought 2 sets of common tools. Lastly, I visited the wholesale clothing stalls, not seeking trendy designs but opting for basic, sturdy, and comfortable styles. 100 pairs of socks in various thicknesses, 10 pairs of breathable sports shoes for summer, and winter boots for each person, 20 plain t-shirts in black and white for summer per person, and 20 sets of thermal underwear per person, 50 sets of undergarments per person, and 200 disposable underwear, 2 down jackets per person, and 5 wool sweaters per person, 5 each of scarves, hats, and gloves. The main purchases were basically done in 3 days. During this period, we kept buying while continuously checking and filling the gaps. My bank account intermittently received several transfers from Easton, the money from selling his house in Carp, over 10 million, a substantial sum indeed, but it seemed like a drop in the bucket as the apocalypse approached. The supplies from the wholesale market took several days to be delivered to the warehouse. The neighbors around were curious, seeing the dozens of trucks going in and out every day, and finally, one day, an elderly lady asked about it. I excused it as a group purchase for the residents, helping with deliveries, and managed to brush off the lady's inquiries. Before leaving, my mom subtly reminded the lady, mentioning there was a pandemic, and advised her to stock up on supplies. I didn't stop my mom. I knew this period was tough for both her and my dad. Close relatives and friends had been warned under the guise of the pandemic. Not many believed. Many just exchanged pleasantries and hung up. In this apocalypse, we couldn't save others, only strive to save ourselves. Easton had someone install 2 surveillance cameras in the corridor, connected to 2 solar chargers, one facing the fire escape door and the other above the anti-theft door at my home. During the day, I followed Easton, driving a rented van back and forth between the warehouse and the residential area's underground parking lot, transporting supplies trip by trip. My dad guarded the parking lot, telling inquirers it was for a renovation on the 18th floor, claiming the materials were for that purpose. The supplies were all in boxes, placed on a handcart and covered with several layers of tarp, completely obscuring their contents. I had already inquired beforehand. Indeed, the 18th floor was undergoing renovation, but the owner was busy and rarely visited, which provided us with a chance to avoid drawing attention. Easton and I went shopping at the mall a few more times. We bought 20 boxes of toilet paper, each containing 24 rolls, 5 boxes of sanitary pads, and dozens of toothbrushes, toothpaste, and facial cleansers. We also picked out 2 sets of skincare products for both me and my mom. It's unclear how many years the apocalypse will last. We might have to stay indoors for years, so proper exercise and entertainment are essential. We purchased several small home gym equipments, 2 Switch consoles, a bunch of game cartridges, several decks of cards, a mahjong set, and several board games. Meanwhile, my mom was at home, cooking delicious meals for us every day. One meal was braised pork. The next was boiled pork slices. And the one after that was stewed chicken. The rest of the time was spent making dumplings, buns, and wontons to freeze, and organizing the purchased food by production date and shelf life, placing them in order on the custom shelves. The date had reached June 11. There were only 3 days left until the super typhoon Tessa made landfall. However, the temperature has already become abnormally low for several days now. My phone and the internet have been flooded with continuous alerts. There's a typhoon warning, and the entire city has suspended work and classes for a week. The government has urged citizens to stock up on food and water in advance, stay indoors as much as possible, and work from home. I'm sitting on the thick, warm carpet in the living room, with a square solid wood low table in front of me instead of a coffee table. On the table are freshly fried shrimp balls and french fries made by my mom, along with a large cup of steaming milk tea. My dad and Easton are engrossed in playing Mario Kart on the massive 100-inch TV screen in the living room. My mom is in the kitchen preparing dinner. The weather is getting colder, and tonight we plan to have a spicy butter hot pot. I lean against the large, soft sofa, facing a Japanese-style wooden kotatsu in the middle of the living room. Next to the window are some fitness equipment we bought earlier. I've set up a fitness regimen for the family, requiring everyone to exercise for 4 hours each day to boost our physical strength. Easton also got a friend from a pharmaceutical company to buy a large supply of everyday medicines and health supplements. The whole family is required to take vitamins and calcium supplements daily to boost our immune system. We've decided not to go out in the days before the typhoon, using delivery services for anything we need, which are dropped off at the entrance of our residential complex for Easton to retrieve with a small cart. I open my phone to browse Weibo and look through the comments under the typhoon news updates. Some of the comments are from students and office workers who are jubilant. Others express concern, noting that this year's weather is extraordinarily abnormal, so cold it's almost surreal, like the end of the world might be coming. In fact, there were already signs of the apocalypse, but many people did not realize the severity. My mom comes out of the kitchen with a platter, calling us to get ready for dinner. The steaming spicy butter hot pot is served with freshly sliced beef, crispy meat, tripe, marinated duck feet, fatty intestines, lettuce, bamboo shoots, lotus slices, enoki mushrooms, and potato slices covering the table. Dipping into my mom's specially made oil sauce, a hot piece of beef instantly makes me break out in a sweat. For the next few days, except for Easton and me picking up groceries and fruits from the delivery, the whole family stayed indoors. On the eve of the predicted apocalypse, our family went to bed early. When I woke up, I thought it was still dark outside, but when I checked my phone, it was already 8 in the morning. Typhoon Tessa had arrived. Worried about Easton and myself, we took all the food we could carry from home and braved the storm to get here. My father doesn't talk about the dangers we faced on the road, but I am still terrified when I think about it. Fortunately, in this life, they no longer have to take such risks. For breakfast, we had vegetable porridge and chicken broth dumplings. While eating, my dad casually turned on the TV to check the morning news. Perhaps because of the typhoon accompanied by thunder and lightning, the TV lost its signal at some point, showing only static. My mom peeled a boiled egg for each of us. Don't worry too much, just focus on living our own lives well, she said. After eating, my parents started exercising with a switch ring fit, and Easton washed the dishes in the kitchen. Meanwhile, I was walking slowly on the treadmill while browsing on my phone. In the community group, someone was sharing pictures of a lavish breakfast, pan-fried dumplings, toast, and fruit salad, while others showed off their fully stocked fridges. These people had no idea that their behavior at this moment would soon put them in great danger. The typhoon has been blowing for 3 days. My mom cut a large plate of fruit and brewed a pot of fruit tea. While drinking the tea, I continued to monitor the messages in the group. In some lower-lying areas, homes were already flooded. Others were trapped in their cars, unable to exit, with the engines dead, calling the fire department for help as firefighters braved the storm to rescue them. Soon, people in the community group started reporting that their supplies were running low, asking who had extra rice or instant noodles to sell at a high price. There were indeed sellers, after all. Some thought the typhoon would eventually pass and saw an opportunity to inflate prices and make a quick profit. The 5th day of the apocalypse. For 5 consecutive days, the relentless wind and rain have been torturing residents, especially those living on lower floors, who are endlessly complaining. In the homeowners group, the first floor was already flooded ankle-deep. Residents on the 2nd and 3rd floors reported foul smells emanating from their bathrooms and kitchens. The city's streets were flooded, mixing stormwater with sewage. The 10th day of the apocalypse. It was still dark outside, and through the thick bulletproof glass, one could still faintly hear the howling wind and rain. The water on the first floor had risen above the calves, making it uninhabitable. Calls to the fire department and mayor's hotline were constantly busy, and the property management had no good solutions. Residents from the first floor simply moved to live in others' elevator halls. Families squeezed into others' hallways, occasionally knocking on doors to borrow some water or a stove to cook. Those who felt bad refusing had to reluctantly help. If they encountered someone with a fiery temper, it could lead to physical altercations. The homeowners group was full of complaints. What was happening outside, I couldn't tell, but the events around us clearly showcased the horrors of this apocalyptic scenario. On the first day of the typhoon, we had already locked the 2 iron doors of the elevator hall and the fire escape. I also wrapped an electric net around the iron door, and the remote control for the electricity was placed on the cabinet. By the entrance, the surveillance was on 247. In the past, there were too many incidents of people breaking into homes with hammers at midnight to steal supplies. I remember, the supermarket in Building 1 was the first victim in our community. There was a fairly large fresh supermarket on the ground floor of Building 1, and the owner's family lived on the second floor. Before the typhoon, most of the supermarket's stock had been sold off. Later, as the weather became too severe, the owner dared not make deliveries and had to close the shop. If someone in the same building needed something, they would just call out in the group, and the owner would send the items up via the elevator. These past few days, the residents of Building 1 were complaining about the supermarket owner in the group. He refuses to sell his goods anymore. Several homeowners were clamoring for the owner to bring out his goods for sale, accusing him of lacking compassion. The owner didn't engage at all in the group chat, but his silence couldn't block the looming evil that had already set its sights. Later, checking the homeowners group chat, it was reported that the supermarket owner's door was smashed open in the middle of the night. The living room of the owner's house was piled with supplies, where he slept to guard them, but the intruders were more than just 1 or 2. In the end, the owner was severely injured, his head battered. He died before medical help could arrive. Recently, several homes in the community had been broken into. There were thefts and robberies, all occurring in the dead of night, with those hearing noises too frightened to go outside. Day 15 of the apocalypse, water had risen to the second floor. However, the storm outside was subsiding, and many in the group chat were cheering. Thinking the typhoon might soon pass, someone suggested that we should go out together to find some supplies. Across from our residential area was a large shopping mall with a big supermarket on the first floor and a food court on the fourth. Although the residential buildings were flooded up to the second floor, the mall was situated slightly higher. We might find something edible there. My family didn't need to go, but someone asked us directly, Apartment 21, you have several people in your family. Do you still have food? Do you want to join us? At that moment, I couldn't say we had enough to eat. After discussing it with Easton, we decided that my dad, and I would go, while my mom stayed to watch the house. Some families had inflatable rafts. I took ours out as well. Since we were risking going out anyway, it was best to bring all the prepared equipment. Besides life jackets, I also brought a firefighter's axe, a nail gun, and a hammer, all packed in a big bag and thrown onto the raft. In my previous life, Easton had gone out with some people from the community and never returned. This time, I wanted to see what would happen. It was called forming a team, but it was just a bunch of people setting off together and then fending for themselves. Our boat couldn't carry anyone else. Those without a raft used large plastic basins, door planks, or swim rings. The temperature had already dropped significantly, and the water was bone-chillingly cold. All 3 of us wore warm clothing and stuck heating pads on ourselves. When we reached the mall, the first floor staircase was submerged, leaving only a shallow ring of windows visible above the water. We made our way to the main entrance, where there was a spot with a rain shelter, completely exposed outside but with a sturdy steel frame suitable for landing. The glass on the second floor was either broken by the wind or smashed by people. My dad stayed to watch the boat while Easton and I, each wielding a firefighter's axe, helped each other climb up to the second floor. The second and third floors of the mall were clothing areas, the fourth floor was food, and the fifth was a cinema. Others had already rushed directly to the fourth floor. Easton and I followed behind. The fourth floor had food stalls on one side and chain restaurants on the other, with plenty of food in the kitchens, though many of the fruits and vegetables, even those stored in freezers, had rotted. Besides the dozens of people from our neighborhood, there were already many others in the mall. Don't put yourself in danger for supplies, and avoid conflicts with others, I reminded Easton. We found an imported food supermarket and quickly grabbed some food and drinks, filling our backpacks, then headed back. Reaching the window, just as I was about to call out to my dad, I saw 2 men with large travel backpacks standing on the rain shelter, menacingly wielding a kitchen knife and a stick at my dad. My dad was in a standoff, holding a nail gun aimed at a man. Easton shouted loudly, leaping onto the shelter and rushing towards the 2 men with a firefighter's axe raised as if to strike. The 2 quickly dodged aside. Glaring fiercely at Easton and my dad, I hurriedly joined in, picking up a claw hammer. They're trying to steal the boat, I said. The 2 on the opposite side, one in his early 20s and the other over 40, looked like father and son. Neither was particularly tall. Our side had 3 people. Both Easton and my dad were over 6 feet tall, and I was not short either. Plus, our family worked out regularly. We didn't have the advantage in numbers, but our weapons were clearly more intimidating. After exchanging glances, the older man gave a signal, and They turned away, throwing their backpacks into a plastic tub and jumping into the water to push the tub away. Throughout the ordeal, both sides kept their eyes and weapons firmly on each other. Several neighbors from our complex had already gathered supplies and watched the whole scene unfold, yet no one spoke up to help. I thought about how Easton, in his previous life, must have encountered such robberies. I noticed that the shelter, which had been completely exposed, was now covered with water that had risen above the ankles. The water seemed to be rising. Without further delay, we didn't wait for the neighbors. Easton started paddling home, and my dad and I kept our weapons raised. Before we reached home, my phone rang. It was my mom's voice, tinged with tears, coming through the phone. Somebody is trying to break in," she said. My mind exploded as if something had burst. Hearing this, both my dad and Easton, eyes red, paddled furiously home. As soon as the elevator doors opened, we saw that the normally locked fire escape door was ajar. The stainless steel door had visible pry marks on the upper half of its lattice. Hearing us, my mom quickly opened the door. "I heard some noise in the hallway, so I turned on the electric fence," she said. "The person trying to break in seemed to have been electrocuted, and someone dragged him away." Easton and my dad, still armed, checked the hallway thoroughly. Confirming that the intruders had left, we locked the fire escape door again, and I turned on the surveillance footage. The footage clearly showed that shortly after we left, two men with a suitcase appeared on camera. They easily pried open the original door to the fire escape. However, they hadn't anticipated an additional stainless steel door inside. They took out various tools from their bag, hammers, pliers. It was the sound of prying that alerted my mom, who quickly switched on the electric grid. The electric grid we had wrapped around the door proved useful. Otherwise, prying open the stainless steel door lock would have been just a matter of time. If there hadn't been an electric grid, if we had been busy gathering supplies and hadn't returned so quickly, just grabbing some food and drink would have been one thing, but coming with tools when the house was empty, they were probably not just after some small theft. As we returned, many people stretched their necks out their windows, eyeing our rubber boat and backpacks. Someone from the homeowners group added me on Instagram, but I didn't accept. They tagged me in the group, asking to borrow the rubber boat. We were anxious to check on my mom upstairs and left the rubber boat below, not having time to secure it. I don't know who might have picked it up. It was like throwing out a hot potato from our house. After all, there were more than a few people coveting this most convenient means of transport at the moment. When we originally bought it, I bought two. No matter if you're pretending to go out or not, you're being watched. This carefully crafted home is the safest fortress. The number of people who went out to scavenge for supplies was far less than who returned. One could guess they encountered something at the mall or halfway through their journey. Some returned home only to find their doors pried open and the little remaining food stolen. Others found their elderly parents and children brutally murdered. In the end, the world has descended into chaos. In the evening, my mom sliced the beef stew she had prepared earlier, and I cooked several bowls of noodles. The noodles were topped with generous chunks of beef and doused in spicy soup with floating chili oil, sprinkled with cilantro and green onions grown by my mom. Each of us had a big bowl, filling our stomachs and momentarily soothing the day's shocks. That night, my mom developed a high fever. It must have been due to the shock during the day. I quickly gave her some fever-reducing and anti-inflammatory medication. By the next morning, her fever had subsided. I cooked a big pot of sticky millet porridge, served with a few side dishes, insisting she eat in bed without getting up to move around. It probably reminded her of the past life where my parents died from a cold due to lack of treatment. By noon, I heard the rain hitting the windows and the howling wind seemed louder than usual. My phone started buzzing nonstop with messages. "The tsunami is coming. Run to higher floors quickly." Although I was prepared, the sound of the terrifying waves outside still frightened me. The roaring sound, accompanied by the terrifying noise of buildings cracking along the way, approached rapidly from afar. The flood swept through everything around, roaring into our community. It almost instantly submerged 10 floors. Some people had managed to run up the stairs to higher ground at the first sign. Those caught off guard were swept out of their windows by the surging waters, along with their shattered furniture. I could feel the building shaking violently. As if an earthquake had struck, it felt as though the whole world was tilting to one side. Easton held me tight, my dad held my mom, and our family huddled on the living room floor waiting for the disaster to pass. After what felt like an eternity, the tumultuous flood outside seemed to lessen, and we approached the window to look outside. The flood was still raging, and it was unclear how many floors it had submerged. The windows of some upper floors had also shattered. A few people, pushed against the windows by the force of the water, seemed unconscious, dangling precariously without the glass to shield them. The seawater had inundated 10 floors. Many homes above had also been flooded, windows shattered, and belongings soaked. Survivors, dragging their battered bodies along with any salvageable materials, crowded in the stairwells. The temperature had dropped below zero, turning every breath into a white mist. The sudden tsunami had damaged most of the electrical and network systems. Refugees couldn't enter our building's elevator area. Outside, They pounded, smashed, and caused a commotion, but were fiercely driven back by our family wielding weapons. We decided to take turns standing guard, checking the stairwell surveillance and door locks. The floodwaters gradually calmed, leaving numerous corpses and debris nearby as some, bolder than others, used sticks and other tools to retrieve useful items from the water. It's the 25th day of the apocalypse recently. It has stopped raining, but the temperature has already dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. The water level has receded to between the 5th and 6th floors. Internet and electricity are sporadic at best. We've received messages from the government on our phones, informing us that they are mobilizing all available resources to provide assistance. However, the disaster we are facing is global and nationwide. Coastal regions are dealing with widespread typhoons and tsunamis, while inland areas suffer from earthquakes and landslides. We trust that the government is doing it's best to rescue every affected individual. All survivors are waiting. The mall across from us was severely damaged during the tsunami, and its supplies have been looted repeatedly. Everything that could be used for burning and warmth has been taken down. Just when everyone thought they couldn't hold on any longer, the sound of motors humming broke the silence. The government rescue team has arrived. 3 assault boats appeared, with firefighters wearing orange life jackets and a bright red national flag mounted at the front of each boat. Excitement erupted both in our chat groups and outside, everyone crowded by the windows, cheering for the rescuers. However, through loudspeakers, the firefighters announced, "This rescue operation is prioritizing residents on lower floors, with the elderly and children first. We will not abandon anyone in need of help, nor will our nation give up on you. Rescue resources are limited, but more teams will definitely come. Please hold on." Finally, help had arrived. Anyone who could still move rushed downstairs, surrounding the firefighters. It took some persuasion from the firefighters to stabilize the situation. After several trips, they managed to evacuate a portion of the trapped residents from our community. The few large boxes of supplies that were left were quickly scavenged and divided among the crowd, much like locusts passing through. Even the wooden crates used for packing supplies were dismantled and used as fuel for heating. I remember from a previous life, the government sent supplies that included rice slightly damaged by water but still edible, drinking water, a few boxes of medicine, and some warm clothing. But the scale of the disaster is too large, the number of affected people too many, and the available rescue resources far from sufficient. After this rescue team left, they moved on to another affected area. Our community has become like a tiny island in the vast ocean. It started snowing outside. The government rescue team has visited twice, delivering 2 batches of supplies and some survivors. It said that our community was chosen because the buildings here are relatively intact compared to nearby areas. The shelters established earlier are now overcrowded and temporarily unable to accommodate more people. Houses left ownerless after the floodwaters receded have become temporary shelters due to severe typhoon damage in our city. It's not feasible to establish a large, safe base here. The nearest base is in S City, over an hour's drive away. Without transportation or the ability to transport large amounts of supplies, and not knowing the situation at the base, we cannot rashly make our way there. Meanwhile, the government has set up several supply stations throughout the city, monitored by the military. They provide rice, flour, water, and warm clothing, available for trade or purchase with gold. Prices are much higher than before the apocalypse, and supplies are limited in both time and quantity. The military presence ensures order at the site, preventing the looting incidents we saw at the mall. However, areas away from the supply station remain unsafe. The money I had left has all been converted into gold bars. My family has bought some supplies at the station and, after a few close calls, decided not to go again. Those unable to endure the cold and hunger, and without means to exchange goods, have started to venture out in search of supplies again. My family has also made a few trips out. No one knows how long this apocalypse will last, and no amount of preparation can withstand constant depletion and unforeseen circumstances. Moreover, my knowledge of this apocalypse comes entirely from my experiences and observations in a previous life. We need to venture beyond our comfort zone to understand what's happening outside. Aside from ordinary people, we've also encountered government troops searching for supplies. The snow is falling heavily, with the sun obscured by thick clouds, making the entire world appear blanketed in white. The wind cuts against our faces, feeling as though knives are slicing through our skin. Every time we go out, we're layered up, wrapped tightly from head to toe. Yet, despite this, my ears and fingers still ended up with frostbite, both painful and itchy. Every day, my mom prepares ginger soup at home and keeps hot water ready for us to soak our feet when we return. And once, after Easton and my dad returned from scavenging for supplies, they looked extremely pale. My dad went straight to his bedroom without having dinner, and no matter how much my mom asked, he wouldn't say why. I secretly asked Easton and found out that they had encountered something while gathering supplies. Easton and my dad had smelled a strange, meaty aroma. Unlike the usual scent of chicken, duck, or fish, it was an eerie fragrance. Following the scent, they arrived at a dimly lit corridor and found a small pile of burnt wood debris and cooking utensils. With no one around, Easton kept watch while my dad searched the area, only to shockingly discover a segment of clean white bone. It looked like a human hand, but it was too clean, not like it had been soaked in water, but rather, as if it had been gnawed on. Recalling the strange scent they had smelled, Easton and my dad, despite feeling nauseous, hurried away from there. I felt a chill run down my spine. It's very likely that the residents upstairs resorted to cannibalism. The snow outside continues to fall deeper, with fewer and fewer supplies to be found. We've decided not to venture out again until this extreme cold passes. It's the third year of the apocalypse. Easton and I are loading a bundle of vine branches, as thick as fingers, onto a small cart. The cart is a modification made by Easton using a solar battery, and the small cart I used to use for package deliveries, powered by solar energy. It only requires manual steering to transport about 100 kilograms of materials. After finally getting home, the cool air inside hits my face, and I sigh in relief. My mom quickly brings us 2 bowls of chilled honey water to replenish our energy. We are in an era of extreme heat. Outside temperatures reach up to 60 degrees Celsius. With plants and insects growing rapidly, we've sealed the sewer pipes with materials to prevent mutated insects from climbing up, cockroaches as long as our pinkies, caterpillars that leave a sticky trail, and tough red beetles with long antennae. A bite from them leaves the skin red, swollen, painful, itchy, and eventually festering. Only the juice from these vine branches can heal these wounds. This is something I never experienced in my past life. During one of our excursions for supplies, my dad was bitten by a bright red insect with small head and large eyes. We took shelter under an unusually thick tree. These vines formed a bundle, enveloping the tree canopy. The biting insects swirled around the tree but didn't settle. Soon, they fell to the ground motionless, as if stunned by an insecticide. I circled the tree, cut off some of the vines, wrapped them around myself, and managed to return home safely without further incident. Experimentally, my dad applied the juice flowing from the cut vines to his wound and immediately felt relief from the pain and itch. This was a significant discovery. This time, our mission was to gather more of these vines, and the purpose of collecting these vines is for our family to prepare to leave, heading to the provincial capital's safe base. The government has established safe bases in multiple cities nationwide, with some even equipped with hospitals and markets thanks to better conditions. However, the journey is quite long, and the extreme heat accelerates the mutation of plants and insects, adding countless unknown risks along the way. Yet, we have compelling reasons to leave. I am pregnant, about 4 months along. The child cannot be born here, not only considering the conditions at the time of birth, but our household's supply of food and water will only sustain the 4 of us for about half a year. We must devise a plan, taking as much as we can carry, to reach the provincial capital's safe base. Firstly, transportation. Easton's modified pushcart, when fully charged under a solar panel, can travel about 20 kilometers, but the base is a good 300 kilometers away from us. Easton and my dad plan to upgrade the pushcart further. Next, there's the issue of supplies. My mom has already sorted out all the remaining food, water, medicine, and other useful survival materials in the house. How can we take everything with us? Lastly, there's the issue of our safety. We've partially solved this with the vines we found today, which are effective at repelling insects. The other half of the problem is what to do if we encounter people trying to rob us on the way. Just when we were at a loss, a turn of events occurred. Today, Easton and I went out to look for supplies. From a distance, we spotted a rescue squad. We headed to a shopping mall, which used to house a large maternity and baby products store. In the third year of this apocalypse, it's impossible to find any food that hasn't expired, but we hope to find some toys for infants or anything else that might be useful. Unfortunately, the toys we found had become thin and brittle, breaking at the slightest touch. Easton did find several boxes of crayons and watercolor pens that still produced color. He carefully packed them away, planning to make some drawing books for the baby when we returned. At that moment, sudden gunfire erupted outside. The shots were rapid and dense, getting closer. I looked at Easton nervously. Don't be afraid, let's go now. Easton and I quickly packed up the items we found and ran downstairs. As soon as we stepped outside, we ran into several people rushing towards us. It was the rescue squad we had seen earlier, who urgently gestured for us to go back upstairs to hide. They were visibly disheveled, and the scorching weather made every breath feel like burning. Running made it seem as though their lungs were on fire. While running, they fired shots behind them. Following them were the same type of crimson insects we had encountered before, but in much greater numbers, swirling into a mass that resembled a red wave. Easton and I quickly pulled out all the vines from our backpacks and faced the running group. Thankfully, my mom had cut some of the vines we had previously found into knots and hung them around the house. with the rest woven into net-like curtains. Easton and I each carried a strip, indeed. As we approached, the swarm of insects split as if cleaved in two, moving to either side. The insects that didn't avoid the vines crashed to the ground. We quickly moved to either side, holding up the vines to protect the rescue squad members as we headed upstairs. Finally free from the insects, we were exhausted and collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat. Easton found 2 clothes hangers. We set up a vine net around the group. After finishing, he quickly sat next to me and handed me a small bottle of water. How are you doing, Flora? Did they bite you? Seeing me shake my head, he checked me over again. The ultraviolet rays outside were too strong, and even though it was hot, we couldn't expose our arms and shoulders. Easton and I wore some protective clothing we had bought earlier. By now, our clothes were soaked with sweat and clinging uncomfortably to our bodies, but, indeed, they were both sun protective and difficult for insects to bite through. However, the others weren't so lucky. Even though they also wore special material clothing, it couldn't withstand the massive number of insects, which targeted tricky spots. 2 of them got stung on their eyelids. Their eyes were now so swollen that they couldn't see their eyeballs and tears seeped out. It showed how unbearable the pain and itching were. Even for soldiers, I still had 2 vine knots on me, which I squeezed with my nails to extract the juice, and applied it to the few rescue soldiers. It was the hottest time of the day outside, and it was unclear if the insects had left. Easton and I couldn't go out, and the people in front of us were covered in wounds. For now, we could only stay here and wait for the sun to set before heading back. We really owe you one, said one of the rescue soldiers. He introduced himself as Elias, the squad leader of the group, on a mission from the provincial base. You two might not know, but our mission was to find a solution to these mutant insects. Unexpectedly, we ran into you and found this, Elias said, looking at the vine net, his eyes seemingly filled with tears. So many at the base suffered from these insects' afflictions, the wounds festered, and the hospital was helpless. The anti-inflammatory drugs they prescribed were ineffective, and we could only watch as people died. I thought we were going to die today too. Our deaths wouldn't matter, but the mission was incomplete. So many were counting on us. As the sun set, the air cooled down a bit. The places where the injured had applied the vine juice also visibly reduced in swelling, and the pain and itching stopped. They kept thanking me and Easton. Elias was overjoyed again. Captain Zhang, tomorrow I can take you to find this type of vine. I have another request. Can you take us along with you back to the base? I told him that we wouldn't delay their mission or slow them down. We just hoped for the nation's protection on our way to the base. Elias quickly assured us that it was no problem at all. Saving lives was their duty as soldiers, especially since we had saved their squad, and the vine we discovered might even save the lives of all the survivors at the base, so protecting us was justified. Easton and I decided to take them back home. When we got home, my parents were shocked at first, then my dad quickly grabbed the fire axe and asked loudly, Flora, Easton, what's going on here? Who are these people? Why are they holding my daughter? Elias and his team members quickly raised their hands and stepped back. After Easton and I explained everything and they saw we were all right, they realized Elias and his team were wearing rescue military uniforms. Finally, we entered the house, and my mom hurriedly served up food. She served homegrown greens, sprouted beans, and canned luncheon meat. We had buckwheat buns for dinner. It was the first time since the apocalypse that someone outside our family joined us for a meal. My dad was overjoyed and brought out a bottle of baijiu, intending to have a few drinks with Elias and his companions. Elias and his team were tempted by the alcohol but had to abstain due to their mission duties, saying instead, once we're back at the base and the mission is complete, we'll all drink at my place. It must be said, the physical fitness of military personnel is indeed impressive. By the next day, Elias and his team had fully recovered. They found the trees entwined with vines that we were looking for, and they began to work in teams. Some used equipment to test the tree trunks and vines, while others collected samples of soil, bark, and leaves. We helped by cutting as many vines and branches as possible, loading them onto a small cart, and bringing them home. Soon, Elias and his team completed their mission. My dad and Easton upgraded the small cart into a solar-powered electric vehicle, which was just right for transporting the remaining items from our home. My mom packed the leftover canned food and the vegetables she grew into a small refrigerator. We also took any equipment from home that could be dismantled and moved. Under the protection of Elias and his team, our family of 4 safely reached the provincial capital's security base with a cart full of supplies. Upon arrival at the security base, Elias and his companions hurried to deliver the vines to the base's research institute. One of them stayed to help us with the resettlement procedures while the others quickly left. The base, built on higher ground, centered around a 6 or 7-story office building, with about a dozen smaller residential buildings nearby. The base was surrounded by a thick wall about 10 meters high. There were military guards at the main gate and patrol teams inside the base. We registered at the gate with our household registration book and were issued base cards based on an allotment of 2 pounds of grain per person. This card would serve as our identity card and pass for entering and exiting the base. We then went to the property transaction window. Along the way, many People looked curiously at us and our cart full of supplies, some with envious gazes. A young team member named Emerson reassured me quietly, "Flora, don't worry. The security inside the base is very good. The chaos outside is known to the authorities, but it's unmanageable. It's the apocalypse, after all. But inside the base, if anyone breaks the law, they will be expelled and become stateless. No base will accept them." I nodded as I listened. This security base was nothing like the survivor shelters we had known before here. Survival depended on personal ability to earn points, which could be exchanged for resources. The base provided a relatively safe environment and a platform for resource exchange, but survival still depended on one's labor. At the housing transaction window, Emerson went inside and spoke with someone I didn't know. The lady who served us was very enthusiastic and provided detailed information about the housing options. Eventually, we chose a small standalone courtyard house in the residential area and rented it for a year, costing us 50 points. These 50 points were exchanged for some of the electrical appliances we had brought from home, totaling over 200 points. Emerson told me that once Elias reported back on his work, he would apply for a reward for our family. We then proceeded to get water and electricity cards, each loaded with points. After dropping us off at the courtyard house, Emerson returned to his team to report back. Our new home was structured like a traditional courtyard house. It was clean, with basic furniture like beds, tables, and sofas, and a large kitchen stove suitable for burning wood. We cleaned the place inside and out, set up the bedding we brought from home, and arranged the air conditioner, induction cooker, and refrigerator. My mom also hung up 2 sets of curtains, making the simple space look clean and cozy. The walls of the house were made of some sturdy material that felt solid to the touch and even gave off a slight chill, making it remarkably well insulated. Even without turning on the air conditioning, it wasn't unbearably hot inside. Consider that this is in a world where temperatures can soar to 670 degrees. The next day, Elias and the leaders of the base came over. Each leader shook hands with us, expressing gratitude for the help we had provided. The base also rewarded us with a generous amount of points, enough to allow us to live comfortably there. After seeing the leaders off, Elias stayed behind, finally able to enjoy a few drinks with my dad. At the base's market, my mom used some points to buy fresh meat and vegetables, and even managed to get a large watermelon. We prepared a full table of dishes, and our family, along with Elias, enjoyed a hearty meal. Later, Elias told us that the research institute had developed a vaccine from the vines, which, once injected into humans, would prevent attacks from the apocalyptic insects. This vaccine would be provided free of charge to everyone at the base. It was effective not only against the previously seen red flying insects but also against many other common types of apocalyptic bugs. Eventually, my dad and Easton joined the patrol team, while my mom used our small garden and some stored seeds to grow vegetables to sell at the market. Her business was doing very well. I started teaching at the base's elementary school, covering subjects like language, math, and art, teaching whatever was needed. The students all liked me, and parents often brought small gifts to our door, sometimes a basket of vegetables, other times some clean fabric. When I wasn't teaching, I used these fabrics to make clothes for the baby. Easton named our baby Peace, hoping that we and the baby could live a safe and peaceful life. This was the 7th year of the apocalypse. The temperature had gradually returned to normal, and over the past year, distinct seasons had begun to emerge. Our homeland was being rebuilt, thanks to the collective efforts of the government and all the survivors. Peace had started school, learning characters and arithmetic.